So I don't know what to do. I'm on this side.
Okay. Well, I'm in Erik's chair today, as you can see.
Turn it down.
Turn it down a little more.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
loud, son. Keep going.
All right. Tell me when.
Yeah, about right there.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me with or without a microphone.
Yep, we can
You know
hear
why
you.
I sound so loud? Because I've got Erik's good microphone. I'm in his chair.
Yeah. Yep. Let me just. I wish we had a producer here.
Yeah.
You know.
It'd be nice if we had a producer here.
Yeah.
But anyways, this morning when I got here, I almost had to arm wrestle Erik to let me sit in his chair. He said nobody sits in it. But anyway, I would like to start off this live stream by congratulating Erik again for his win at the 2023 Southwest Nationals. How many years did it take you to get there, Erik?
I think I started going in 2011 or so. So 12.
Yeah, when did you and I have our blueprinting and barrel fitting class? Do you remember?
2012.
2012?
Yeah, because it was before the World Championship in 2013. So it had to be 2012.
So it's been 12 years in the coming, huh?
Yeah, but it seems like a long time.
It does.
However, after I started reflecting, I realized that. So I think Southwest National has only been going on for like 13 years. Okay.
Right.
Because I think I missed the first one. And there's been two people that won it twice, Bob Seabold and John Myers.
Right.
That means there's only like, what is that, 10 or 11 people that have ever won it.
Right.
So it's a.
Yeah, and there again, John Myers is another one of my proteges.
There's on speed to turn his audio up a bit.
Turn my audio up a bit.
They can't hear him very well.
Okay.
Let's say it again.
How's that? Text me back quickly.
So anyway, so yeah, I realized that, and I thought that was, that was cool to realize that, because, it seemed like a long time, but then I realized, oh, there's not that many people that have actually won it. And
Right.
anyway, so yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky that it happened. It's one of those things that you want them to happen every year, but you also have to realize that you can't
Well,
win
you're shooting
every.
this the best in the world. Said I feel real fortunate to have been able to ride along in a journey with Erik over the years. I said we've collaborated a lot. We speak on the phone a lot. You've seen some of the videos that he shot in the shop when he comes by and tries to pick my brain. And while I'm there, he indulges a video here and there. But I just get to ride on his coattails, and being a champion myself, it's easy to put myself in Erik's shoes to know what it feels like to win, because you struggle a lot along the way, And I said, for Erik to do that, I mean, I'm just as proud as I would if it was my own son. So another thing that I want to thank Erik for, he just told you it took 12 years between the time I've known him to reach that championship level. And you would think that this medal right here that he won at the Southwest Nationals would be hanging in his trophy room with his accomplishments he had in 23 years. But he was gracious enough to give it to his master, and I have to thank him again for that. Thank you, Erik.
Anytime, boss. Anytime. You were part of it as much as, and there's many people that have helped me along the way. You being one of them. I mean, I chamber my own barrels because of you. I always tell people I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I have their phone numbers. And whenever I wanted to learn how to chamber barrels, I could have tried it on my own. I'm sure I could have had some success. However, I have no idea how long it was going to take, and I needed it like now, right? Like I wanted to be competitive now.
Well, when you came to me, you told me that you wanted to do this to eventually become a national champion. And really, in my book, just by looking at the competition, I'm not an F-class shooter per se. I'm one of those point-blank shooters. To me, it seems that the Southwest Nationals garners a lot more attention amongst the shooters than does even the F-class nationals. I know that it's more prestigious to win the F-class nationals, but the Southwest nationals, I mean, that's the first chatter that even me and benchers hear people talk. You going to Southwest National? You going to South? And I don't hear that so much about the standard nationals, you know.
Right. They've done a really good job promoting that match.
Right.
They put on a good match, and over the years, that's become the match. You know, I know the F-class nationals is kind of like the official nationals, but this is just as hard to win, just because everybody's there.
Well, I'm going to put Erik to the hot seat there, and I brought some questions. I normally, when I watch Erik's videos, I know that he's, how do you put it? He kind of tries to keep people's secrets to themselves and not ask the hard questions that most of the viewers out there really want to see. They want to know how he loads, how he prepares, how he approaches a match situation, how you go from second and third place to a national champion. All that is going to be answered today.
Well, it's going to be asked.
Interrogation of Erik Cortina.
It's going to be asked today.
Oh, yes, it's going to be asked. Look at all these pages I've got here, just tons of them. So that's page one. We're done. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring up, not only for this video, but other videos that I watch, is that most people will just watch a video and they'll comment on it and they'll tell our friends, hey, did you see that new Erik Cortina video and all that? But they don't really take the time to pick out those little gold nuggets that every so often present themselves. I mean, we hear Erik talking to some of the other competitors about how they did this or how I did this or this in the match. And every once in a while, I say you just see that one little nugget. So what I like to do when I watch these videos is listen to the entire video first. Then I want to sit down with a paper and a pen and then start going through that in chunks, just like the way we used to learn material when I played in a band. We couldn't learn the whole song in one, sitting. So we learn a little piece and we learn a little piece. And a lot of times in those little pieces, when we start putting them together, you start to see the whole thing fall together. So I'll sit down and I'll go through those little chunks and I'll write them down. So this will be a good time to start that because we're going to ask some questions that you don't normally hear on some of the interviews. But anyways, let's get to the next question. So Erik Cortina just won the 2023 F-class nationals, and I'd like to discuss some of his gear. So I'd like to start with the action. Typically, I've seen you shoot the Borden BRMXD actions. What do you feel is more to your liking with a BRMXD? And I'm not trying to put any of the action makers down, but there are certain things that you like about that allow you to compete in a certain rhythm and make it easy, open, close the bolt. What do you like about a Borden action as opposed to, say, a Bat or a Defiance?
Well, I've never used a Bat or Defiance, but what I really like about the Bordens, so when Jim set out to make an F-class action, he reached out to me and said, hey, what do you think? And I said, man, I'm no action maker. He goes, it doesn't matter. Just tell me what you think. So I tried it and I said, man, this is so smooth. Like I didn't at the time, this is 7, 8 years ago.
Right.
I didn't really understand timing as much as I understand it now.
Right.
And I just knew that, man, when I went to go close the bolt, there was zero disruption of the rifle.
Right.
Whereas every other action I've tried, it was like click, and just kind of,
correct.
Because, you were cocking on close. And it was just so smooth. And the whole action, it just feels like a vault when you go to close it, And I said, man, I there's really not much I can help you with. This thing is, he was asking me to inspect it, but instead I started admiring it.
Right. Well, you sent it to me for inspection, and I have to admit that you have number 1 and 2, don't you?
Still.
Yeah. And I said, when I went through those things, I said, well, I don't know if Jim just did this because it's Erik Cortina and he's trying to get his actions out, but they were actually works of art. I mean, both the headspace, everything was just perfect on each one of them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the timing was good on them. I think we just did a little bit minor you know, at any time you build anything in production, there's just a little burr or something that you might want to address to make sure that it doesn't crop up later in the competition. So using the BRMXD actions, do you have anything that you've seen in them that you would have changed, or do you change anything in them? I know when I shoot in competition, every time I put a new barrel on, I put a new spring on it. I don't wait till the end of the year should I have changed it, you know? So when I put a new barrel, I'm going to do new load development for that barrel. I put a new spring in it, you know, and adjust it to the weight as close as I can to the last one, and go from there. Do you do any of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, maintenance. Every time I clean the barrels, you know, they go on my bench. Every time I go shoot, they come back, they go on the bench, and they go on the cradles. Who makes those? The PMA? PMA cradles. I have those on my bench. They go there, and then when I'm ready to clean them, you know, the barrel gets cleaned. You know, I have a bore scope and all, and the bolt get disassembled.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean by that is just pull out the firing pin and clean out the inside, the outside, inspect everything, make sure everything's good. So that's kind of like the day-to-day.
Right.
Make sure I don't have excessive lube in there, you know.
Yeah, well, that can be a problem on competition gun, especially when we go from the Southwest anywhere where it's north and cooler, especially maybe in Phoenix. You can go this time of year and be freezing and snowing out there, you know. And if you leave oil or a heavy grease on that spring or something, that starts affecting your firing pin fall, you know, and you don't have the same inertia hitting the primer from time to time. So your gun can go out of tune just based on that, you know.
Yeah, so I check that every time. Just look at it. I use that IOSO triple action cleaner.
Right.
Just put it on there, wipe everything down, because I don't use lube. I mean, that's technically a lube, but I put it on, it cleans, and then it kind of lubricates. Right.
Yeah,
but
you don't want a lot of oil and lube.
Yeah, I just wipe everything off. Same thing on the bolt face. But as far as the springs go, yeah, new barrel, new spring.
Yeah.
And I use the Wolf springs, 28 pound.
Right.
Jim's springs are really good too.
Yeah, he's I think 24 pound, 22 to 24.
I use 28 on mine, and
Well,
I always, the reason I use Wolf is because I have a big pile of them.
Right.
Like Jim says, well, just call me when you need them. I'm like, well, I got a big pile of springs, because they're cheap. They're like $8.
Yeah. Do you do anything to prep the springs before you put them back in there?
Well, you know I do.
Well, these guys want to know.
Well, if you asking me, it's because that means you want me, like, you're okay with me telling me, because all this I learned from you. So
Spill the beans.
remove the spring. And the first thing I always do, I put them right next to each other. And
Right.
sure enough, one's longer than the other, just because of, you know, it's lost some weight over the year.
Right.
You know, right? Or I don't wait years, like over time.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, almost every time I take one out of a gun, when you put the new spring next to the old spring, and I've got a little deal set on my bench right there. When I take them out, I always mark it. You know, I'll put BRMXD, or I'll put you know, Bat Nouveau, whatever it is, and I'll mark the old spring. When I take it out, it's shorter than it was when it went in. So there's some compression going on, even though we change them out pretty often.
Yeah, so that tells me I'm on, you know, if anything, it's confirmation that, don't let this go too long.
Right.
Because they're always shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the firing pin, I clean everything out, and then I drop the spring in there just to see how it rides.
Right.
And then I deburr the ends of the inside, the ID, because, you know, they grind those springs flat.
Yeah, and it's just like a knife edge on it.
It is a knife edge. So I go in and I deburr the inside of that spring, put a bevel on it, just so it doesn't catch.
So when we deburr those springs, what we typically do is I use one of the carbide 28-degree chamfering tools, and I've got it just mounted on my little case prep deal. So when I need to deburr those springs, rather than trying to do it by hand, I just turn that on. I think I showed you that.
Yeah. Well,
and then you just put that spring in and put a chamfer on the inside of that spring. So it's not so critical at the boss of the firing pin, but where the firing pin exits the shroud, that's where it starts to scratch and do damage to your firing pin on occasion.
Yeah. So yeah, I do that every time. Deburr the springs. Again, like the way I learned from you, and then I put it in there. Just put everything back together, and that's it. Just again, check it. Make sure it rides up and down.
Yeah, it should just slide
It
up
should
in there.
slide up in there with no friction whatsoever. And I literally flip the firing pin upside down. Make sure it just falls on its own. Very simple little test, but that's what I do. And that's what I do. I replace it. I always check for interference, even though my shroud has been clearanced.
Right.
And that's the other thing from Borden. They come pre-clearanced. And a lot of people don't know what this means. But I don't know how deep you want to go.
Well, I mean, yeah, we went over this, and when Erik first came to my shop, we went over blueprint action. But and Erik and I talking to Jim Borden, he just does this at the as it comes.
Well,
from the factory.
I mean,
I'll let Erik explain it. He's in the hot seat.
Okay, so the shroud where the firing pin rides, it's 1.2 inches.
Correct.
And you got all that guiding the firing pin. Well, you don't need that much.
Yeah.
So what
friction.
It's just friction. So what I do is I counterbore the shroud from the bottom up. The bottom being the part towards the bolt face. Yep. Yeah. I counterbore that 600 thousandths just to give it more clearance. Again, you don't need 1.2 inches riding on that firing pin.
Right.
Cut that in half. You're gonna reduce friction. Of course, I go in there with I take just IOSO in a patch and I spin that, and then I just go in there and polish it. Make sure I didn't leave a burr when I open that up, and that's it. And then on the back side of the cocking piece, around it, on the inside but on the back, that's just clearance. Well, sometimes there's not enough, and I opened that up just to make sure there's no drag whatsoever. When John was here, F-Class John, I checked some of his, and they were dragging.
You were giving my secrets away.
I didn't give them away. But anyway, I clearance his stuff, and some of these actions are not. Some actions out there are not clearance properly, and they're dragging, and people don't even know it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of times when they take the cocking piece off the firing pin and then replace the cross bolt in there, that sometimes they leave it sticking out the other side, and if it's dragging on the inside of that shroud, that's death on a stick.
Yeah.
Erik was talking about relieving that first 600 thousandths of that shroud. We typically use a 5/16. I use a 5/16 reamer.
Yeah, I just bore it.
Yeah,
but
once you set it up in a lane, it's just as easy to bore it. But we open it up to about 312 from they're 280 in diameter to begin with. Yeah.
So I just open that up, make sure in the back it's got plenty of clearance. And see, again, Jim Borden does all this already.
Right.
Like when you get them.
That's a standard BRMXD when you buy it nowadays.
Keep in mind, Jim Borden is a Hall of Fame bencher shooter, just like yourself. So he knows all these tricks already. And he puts them in his actions.
So he's just incorporating it, just making it easier on the end user.
Like I said, when the first time I got that action from him to check, to kind of test it, I already knew these things from you because I'd been doing it to my other actions. Right. And when I disassembled the whole thing, I'm like, that's done. I'm like, this is great.
Easy peasy.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been using Jim's actions still to this day, just because of you. Yeah. Even when I get them from Jim, first thing I do is tear them apart.
That's our philosophy. Everything's broken until you check it.
So, but yeah, that's what I do, and everything's good.
On your
check firing pin fall.
Yeah.
Everything.
On your the BRMXDs, what configuration do you like on the line?
I like right. That's
right.
It. Simple. Yep. And the reason for that, there's a lot of people using right, left.
Yeah.
And
there's too much movement on the ground, don't you think?
That is precisely why I don't use them, because what I do is I stay on the gun like this, and I read mirage through my scope.
Right.
So when I shoot, I open the bolt. See, I don't free recoil.
Right.
I'm on the gun.
Yeah.
So the gun doesn't move that much. I open the bolt. I reach in there because I don't even use ejectors.
Mm-hmm.
I reach in there, put the brass in the case, and I'm looking through the scope this whole time.
Right.
And then I throw one in there. I push the gun forward. I reset, and I'm looking at the target. But the whole time I've been looking at the conditions, right? If I had to do both, you know, there's a lot of movement there.
That's why I say if you want to do it one way, you do it all right, like you're doing, or left, where you've got, even if you're right hand shooter, everything's right there. You know.
Yeah, that's how Steve Harb did it.
That's how John Myers did it as well.
You know, they're right-handed, but they do everything left
Right.
because they have their joystick hand, and I thought about that for a while, but the way I do it, I hate changing, especially when it's working.
Yeah.
When it's not working, I don't have a problem changing.
Well, I mean, you develop that muscle memory too, and then so you're like, what do I do now? You know, especially it may work fine when you're doing slow, deliberate fire, but if that wind is there and there you got a good target puller, you want to get them down there, and you're like, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, the biggest thing that helps you shoot fast, you know, number one, you have to develop a system, right? And
Right.
I just stay on the gun, and I can shoot pretty fast. But the other thing is, you got to full length size that brass.
Yeah.
'Cause if you can't get it in there,
Well, we're getting reloading.
you know,
Don't tell them all
it's
too. I
Anyway.
may have to throw page 3 away already. Okay, so you've got, we talked about a little bit about your action aboard BRMXD. And there again, before we get into all this stuff, you know, you and I have talked about it. You can't be a champion with crap. I hear on your videos that the action's free, you know. By the time you build
it
a
is
gun,
free.
Yeah, it's free.
the actions are the cheapest thing you'll ever buy.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people, oh, that's $1,600. Yeah, but you don't ever have to change it out again. How many years have you been shooting that one?
Since 2015, I believe.
Yeah, so
8 years.
how many
And
barrels have gone on those actions?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have it written down somewhere. But if I was to, that's the point, right? If I was to sell that action right now, I could easily get what I paid for it in 2015.
Yeah. That's why some people bring me Remington. I said, I can blueprint that and put $600 into it, but when you go time to sell it, it's a Remington.
Yeah.
You know?
So, you know, I could get rid of those two actions right now and actually make money on them.
Yeah.
And
Especially
so that's
now
what I'm
since
saying.
everything is so hard to get. You know,
Yeah.
it's like everything else, just
Try
going
that.
up and up.
Try that with anything else.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but the way I think is this. The most expensive, and this is not me thinking, this is literally math. The most expensive thing you'll ever buy is bullets.
Yep. Exactly.
That's cost you, you know, if your barrel life is 2,000 rounds, bullets are about 50 cents each, if
Right.
not more. That's $1,000.
Yeah. Well, I make my own bullets, and there's no money savings in that at all. You know?
Yeah.
It's the only thing that I get out making my own bullets is strictly quality control. That's it.
So, you know, so bullets is the most expensive thing you're going to buy. Actions, probably going to be the cheapest. The next cheapest is probably going to be your scopes,
Right.
things of that nature. And then you get into primers. Primers they're not even cheap anymore, right? But because your bullets are the most expensive thing you'll ever buy, I don't want to shoot them through a crap barrel,
Yeah.
or an action that's not delivering what it's supposed to, right?
Okay, well, this isn't in line with this, but you just brought up a subject right there that I hear. And in fact, this past weekend, I had 2 people tell me the same story. This is my practice brass. And you look at, they showed you the necks, and it's not right. You know, the brass is all scratched up. You can tell it went into the chamber hard. You know, and probably it was clicker coming up. You know,
Yeah.
so you can't practice with any of that stuff and come back and say, well, that was positive. You know,
No,
if you have a bad day with that, how can you tell?
No, I don't have practice barrels.
On here.
I don't have a practice rifle. I don't have a practice anything. I have 2 rifles, F-class rifles, and they are both equally as competitive.
Right.
And I took them both to Southwest Nationals.
Yep.
I shot the mid-range with one, and I shot the long range with the other. I got second place at mid-range by 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was behind on X's, but the point is I still only dropped 1 point. And of course, I ended up winning the long range. But I could have moved them around, and I don't think that the results would have made any difference.
So I mean, if you go to our little club match here in New Braunfels, you just grab one of those guns. And
Well, I don't have any others.
Yeah. But I mean, why would you go with a subpar gun? I mean, it's not even worth getting up and going to shoot.
I hear people, this is my A gun or this is my B gun or whatever. So
Right there.
this is my A gun or my B gun or whatever, and I'm like, man, I all my guns are my A guns, you know. I ask, I'm like, why do you have a B gun? Why do you have one of those?
Yeah, it's no good. I mean, when you take a gun to a match, it's your backup. I mean, it's got to perform just as good as the other one. You know, when you're shooting bad, you don't go grab that one,
Right.
You know, because you know all of a sudden that's not your B gun anymore. It's like your C or D gun after that.
Right. And that's so anyway, it's different mentality, and I get it. You know, we've discussed this, but you know, like Lanny Basham said, there's 3 types of shooters. You say there's 2, so we'll get into that right quick. Lanny Basham says there's the guy that likes to go and shoot to have fun.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones that prepare to compete. You know, those are the ones that have an A and a B gun and a C, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I'm going to go to a club match. I mean, that's competing. They prepare. They don't want to take their good gun. And then there's those that prepare to win.
Mm-hmm.
Those don't have any bad guns.
Right.
Because you can't, if all your preparation is for winning, you can't. So the way I look at it is the only way to measure your own performance is for everything else to be as good as possible.
Right.
And isolate yourself, and then you just go and see how you do.
Well, I mean, that's the same way I've got my program set up. I have enough of the same lot of brass to shoot for the next 10 years. I make my own bullets, and I've got over 200,000 jackets, you know. Yeah, so I'll be making bullets probably for this guy when I get too old to shoot, you know. And same with powder and primers. So, I mean, if something out of my program quits working, it's the guy behind the gun. You know, it's not the components.
Yeah. So that's the thing about that, right? It's that's why I look at it the way I look at it.
Right.
You know, and sometimes I know when I don't prepare enough, you know, I just show up and go, you know, I'm not gonna do well. It's you already know. And most of the time, I don't like showing up that way.
Yeah, and when you do that, you're prepared to lose probably too. You know?
I don't like showing up that way, but oftentimes I'll show up and say just pretty much for the team.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna coach, so I don't really need to bring I don't even need to bring a gun, period.
Right.
But you know, it's like if I'm gonna be there, I might as well shoot. But I'll just bring a gun it's gonna be okay, and it is a lot of work, and I need to make sure people know this. It's a lot of work to shoot at top level.
Right.
And that's why what I do is I kind of so I at the World Championship, the last one, 2017. I forget. I don't write down my how I finish, because to me that's in the past. Just look forward. But by memory, I got 5th place at the World Championship. I got 3rd place in the team at the World Championship. And then right immediately after that, I went to the Nationals, and I got 3rd place at the Nationals.
Right.
I was shooting well because I was practicing. I was putting in the work.
Well, you're doing what I tell most of the, you know, fledgling competitors, that you have to first put yourself in a position to win. And that's what you're doing by putting yourself in that top elite group right there, you know, and then y'all can shake them up afterwards.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is I do the work leading up to the big matches.
Mm-hmm. That's preparation to win.
Yeah. And then after that, I tend to take it easy. Like it's because if I try to, I know myself, if I try to do this all the time,
You burn out.
you burn out. I mean, I will. It's just a lot of work.
Yep.
So that's why I kind of go like this, you know, prepare, do well, and then take it easy the rest, and then just kind of coast.
That's
for a
what
while.
I used to do. I used to have a competitive year where, I mean, I just would burn everything to the bottom of the candle, and then the next year was for my play year when I heard about the new actions and new barrels and new stocks and new scopes.
That's where I was for the last few years, and even then, I'd show up to nationals, and you know, I'd get 10th.
Yeah, well,
top
that's what I
20.
had to do on my play years when
Yeah.
I was testing all the new things. You know, you have to shoot them against competitors that are world class in
Yeah.
order to see if these components are worth anything. You know,
Yeah.
so that's what I did in my play year.
And then oftentimes I'll go to matches and people, that's why I don't even like talking to people about what I'm doing, because they have a different mindset. And, you know, you're not going to convince them of anything else. So, for example, there'd be years where I go, and then you can tell right away at what on day one tells you what level you're at.
Yeah.
You're like you know if you're gonna win.
It's
Or
gonna
if
be a
you,
long week.
yeah. So what I would do is like, okay, well this is not going well. I'm not gonna win, right? My gun isn't just not. My gun and me, this whole thing is not at a point where I can win.
Right.
And then I would do exactly what I told John to do this go around. I'm like, well, stop trying to win this match and start working on the next one. And then I would just shoot through everything. Like, oh, it's really windy. Okay, if it was really windy and I had to shoot right now, what would I do? Mm-hmm. Well, I'd put here, and I'd shoot and I hit a 9 or an 8 or whatever, and I'd be like, okay. And I would just learn.
Right.
And of course, my score goes to crap, but again, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just going to learn, right? And most people would not ever do that because they just want to keep clawing and it's fine, but is it, are you preparing to win or are you preparing to compete?
Yeah.
And at some point I'm like, okay, I'm not going to win this one. I'm going to start working on the next one. And that's where I would just shoot through everything, especially in Phoenix, because I don't have that anywhere around here. Mm-hmm. So if I'm there and it's blowing like crazy, I'm like, let's see what I can learn here. And I would just shoot because I also had to coach the team, right?
Right.
So I'm like,
take that knowledge to the
exactly.
team. Right.
So I'll be, you know.
Yeah.
But
You're a sacrificial lamb, basically, at that point.
Well, I'm learning,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, when I would tell people that, they'd be like, oh, that's just excuses. I'm like, okay, never mind. So I'm not going to tell you now.
Yeah. Well, I see that in the teams in the ELR. You know, they have several guys out there, and each successive shooter is the sacrificial lamb so that somebody in the team is going to win,
Yeah.
you know.
So I told John to do that this year. He was shooting pretty bad. He was pretty down on himself, and I said,
well, he knew he was going to have to shave. He couldn't concentrate.
so I told him, I said, quit trying to win this match. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Just you're done. You're not winning this one. Get that through your head. You're going to relax. Because the reason he's stressed out is because I'm shooting bad at this match. Well, forget this match. And now it's just a practice. I don't get stressed at practice.
Yeah.
So he started just shooting through it. He literally shot a shot every minute, whatever condition it was, right? Comes back the next day and wins the whole freaking thing, the whole aggregate for the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there you go. Because you know how? Because he learned on that day, he learned a lot about the conditions, right? He learned. Again, you can go into learning mode, and that's a really good mode to go because you're not stressed out. You have the conditions that everybody else. It's all about perspective, right?
Well, that's one of the problems that somebody like you that's on YouTube all the time, and F-Class John, and some of these other guys that actually compete. You know, when you show up at those matches, people are expecting you to perform. You know, you're just like the movie star that came or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
They're all, oh, there's Erik Cortina, you know. And fortunately, you've had a pretty successful 2022. You went out to the UK and came in second there, if I recall correctly, you know.
Yep.
And so, there again, that's putting yourself in those positions to win, you know.
Yeah.
So you got the big show coming up, so let's not.
Yeah. So I went to England, first time ever there.
Yeah.
Air firing, but see again. It was not my first match there. Mm-hmm. Let me back it up. I was there, and we were there early. We were like 3 days early. So we shot their league match that was going on. We missed the first day, so obviously we were not going to win. Yeah. But I used that to learn the conditions, to learn. And to test my tuner.
Right.
You know, test the tuner. Test. Once the European started, it was on. Like, okay, now it is what it is, but now let's try to win this thing, right? There's no more testing, no more learning. It's
That's when you get onto the line, all the gunsmithing, everything's over.
Exactly.
It's time to concentrate on
So-
the conditions, and you're. And
So
you're shooting
technically, that was my second match there because I had used the first few days
Right.
to train or to learn and to test. And I had a few people not come up to me directly, but some of the people that I knew told me that people were coming up to them saying, "Hey, I thought this guy's supposed to be badass. What's?"
That's what I'm talking about.
And he's exactly, and he's like, no, he's testing. Nah, man, he's just a YouTube guy. He doesn't know how to shoot. Blah blah blah. And I said, man, don't worry about it. Yeah. And of course, this guy's my fan, right? So he's kind of getting a little bit butthurt, and I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm doing my thing. And
if you're gonna put yourself out there, you better have a thick rind.
Oh yeah. So anyway, once the Europeans started, again, I didn't look at my scores, but they had we didn't shoot one day. Everything got delayed because the Queen passed. So on Saturday, they had a banquet. So we shoot Saturday the first day, and I go in there, and people they're coming up to me saying, "Man, you shot great, and you shot amazing, and this and that." And I'm like, "Well, okay, well, thank you." But the reason they were telling me that is because I cleaned the 1,000-yard, the 20-shot 1,000. I cleaned that. And so anyway, long story short, when I go to the banquet, they have a big screen there with all the scores. Mm-hmm. And I find out that Todd was first and I'm second by 1 point. Yeah. And so on and so forth, right? So I was in second place. But again, I was just doing my thing. At that point, I don't care how anybody else is doing.
If you're doing good, everybody comes to tell you. You don't have to look at the scores.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
hey, you want to sing.
So, and then on day two, it turned out that the weather was so foggy that pretty much it was just one match for all the marbles. And I was paired up with Todd because he was 1, I was 2. So we were on target 1, and it was dead calm.
Just dope off of Todd.
Just a slight breeze. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, this is going to be easy because, like Todd dropped 3 points on day 1 in the wind, and I dropped 4, right? And I cleaned 1,000, 20 shots, and now I just have to do 15, right? So I'm like, well, this is a done deal, right? I'm going to shoot it clean. Todd's going to shoot it clean. Todd gets first, I get second. All right. 1-2 USA. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things that you can't go with any expectations to the line because things just don't always work out. We don't shot like 4 or 5. So I went with a plan of just stay clean. Just stay clean.
Give me the point.
Because I had the V's. I had the V's on everybody, especially on Todd, which is really the only one that mattered. And I thought, well, if I just stay clean, just safe side, stay clean, and give him, maybe he'll drop a point, and that's it. It's over, right? I win. Well, he just starts off with V, and I'm like, oh, man. And all of a sudden I start thinking, shit, what if he catches me on V's, right? I better start hitting some. So then I start hitting some V's, and then he hits a 4 at like 10 o'clock. Internationals, they do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it would be the equivalent of a 9 for us here. So he hits a 4, and I look at that and I go, well, his gun opened up. And I go to hold exactly where I held, and I thought, I wonder if I should move just in case. And I'm like, no, play your own game, right? That was the other thing that I had going to the line. Just ignore everything else and do your own thing. And I shoot, and I put it right on top of his. And of course, hindsight, I'm like, oh man, why didn't I just move over? Yeah. And I would have won, right? But it's one of those things that I had a plan, and I'm not mad because I executed my plan.
Right.
Had it went the other way where I had a plan and then that made me change my mind and then I blew a 4, I would be upset. So I'm not upset because I followed my plan to the T. And anyway,
you got to play your game. You can't play anybody
exactly.
else's.
So I ended up dropping another 4 up there. There was a condition that would push him up there, and Todd actually ended up dropping 3 points. So I ended up getting second place. Yeah. And so Todd and I actually ended up with the same score. There was like 4 or 5 of us with the exact same score. It was Todd, Gary Costello, God, who else? There was multiple people with the exact same score. But because I had the highest V count, I won. Yeah. Or I didn't win. I got second place. I won all the ties, right? But the point is, just follow your plan. And had it not worked out, again, oh well. Mm-hmm. I follow my plan, right?
Cool. Well, back to our gear. What about the rings that you use? What do you typically use? I've seen your video on some of the rings that you use, but what are you currently using?
Well, I've moved away from 2-piece rings, and I'm just went to 1-piece rings.
Right.
I started with
1-piece rings on your Picatinny rail.
Yep. Just one piece. Who was David's the one? David Christian, my teammate. He's the one that started doing that. Him and Jay. And he said, man, we should do this. And he's from Canada, and I can't think of the name. God dang
What was the theory behind it, the 1-piece as opposed to the 2-piece?
Well, it'll stiffen everything up. That's the theory. It's like everything is going to be stiffer.
On top of that big BRMX.
Exactly. But, the scopes are not very – they're kind of fragile.
Oh, yeah. They flex very easily.
So I'm like, and they started doing those 1-piece mounts, and so we started using them, and I can't for the life of me think of what they're called right now. But anyway, they have 2 rings in the front and 1 in the back. So we started using those.
And that gives you enough leeway to.
Yeah, it's plenty. There's plenty of movement for adjustment.
Yeah.
So we started using those, and lately, because of the that Need More series that we did, we ordered some from MDT. So the latest one that I have is an MDT, and
they aluminum or steel?
They're aluminum, and they're also super beefy. Those only have 1 ring in the front and 1 in the back, but they're real wide.
Yeah.
And they have these.
How many screws they got? 6 or 4?
I think it's 6, but it's the big ones.
Yeah. 8.
Yeah, and then I've also used some from Masterpiece Arms. I've tried them all, and they all seem to work just fine. But I prefer that over the 2-piece.
Do you do anything special to your rings? I know on your on the bases on your MXD when I had them, we glued them down. But
yeah.
What do you do? You lap your rings or lap and bed them, or
I don't, but
do they leave ring marks on your scopes when you take them out?
No, and that's why I like the 1-piece. Like. And that's why they're so. I think that's why I like them so much, because it takes a lot to bend them.
Yeah.
Because the rail, and and I know Jim does a good job. The rails are pinned, and then we glued them, so they're in there. But you and I have discussed this about lapping and bedding rings, and I've just never done it.
Yep.
But when I had Mr. Spur from Spur Mount,
right,
and you get online and you start bringing up lapping rings.
Right.
I mean, all the keyboard warriors, and with good reason. Like I don't do it myself. Right. So I get why they say that. However, when I was talking to Mr. Spur from Spur Mounts, he's like, "Oh no, you should check them. You should just because the rail sometimes binds, and you should always check."
Yeah.
But I haven't done it, so it's just one of those things that what I do is I put on my scopes. Mount them. I go do a tall target test. I do a tracking test.
Right.
And if everything checks out, I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I don't do anything. But if my scope ever did not track, I wouldn't blame the scope right away. I would bed the rings.
Right.
So that's how I go about it.
Well, we bed them for a couple of reasons. One, you don't have to use as much torque on the caps to hold the scope in place, so you're not putting the scope in any excessive bind that it doesn't need to be in. Even on the March scopes, they've got a little warning there not to over tighten them, because they don't want you to take that round tube and make it like an oval,
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen some of those things where the rings are supposed to have a gap in them. Kelby's and every one of them just flat up against the other. Like,
they're
yeah. And the guy takes the scope off, looks like tomahawk chops on the side of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And your scope of flavor, I've heard through the grapevine that you've been looking at the new March 8 to 80. I think you're shooting the collies now.
Yeah, I've been shooting collies for a while. The collies 10 to 50.
Yeah. You notice how
How what?
you noticed, I forgot what I was going to say.
So I use the collis scopes, the 10 to 50s. Been using them for a while. They track like amazing. They just track like, you know how sometimes, and people will relate. They'll go to 1,000 yards and they'll click the scope up,
Right.
right? And then they'll start shooting and they're like, oh, I'm a little high, click it down. Oh, I'm a little low. I'm a little low, click it, click, click, click. The collis, you bring it up and you're done. Like it doesn't bounce around. You're done.
Are you using those in your PRS gun as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So, full disclosure, I'm sponsored by them.
Right.
But I started using them before I was sponsored.
Right.
So, and this is the, since I'm being interrogated right now. There's a lot of people trying to sponsor me. And if it's not 100% benefit to me for winning, after all, I'm trying to win.
Right.
I'm not trying to get free stuff. I'm not trying to get nothing other than freaking wins.
Yeah, well, I'm the same way. I have people send me stuff or want me to take stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
and
So what you see me using, I'm using it because
it works.
It works, and I'm gonna win with
Right.
it, or at least I think I have a chance at it.
Yeah.
You can try to give me whatever you want, and if I don't think I'm gonna win with it, I'm not gonna use it. That's just how I am. It's that's just who I am. I'm a competitive shooter above everything else.
Right.
Because I was buying all my own stuff when I had no money. And today, like I said, I'm people try to give me stuff all the time, and I thank them and everything. And I'm not saying it's bad stuff, but if I'm happy with what I have, I'm gonna stick with it.
Right.
Again, just because I don't use it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that I'm real happy with what I'm using, and even if it's this, for example, if I'm gonna change, I hate changing, especially because you know how long it takes to come up with a good system.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta check the scopes and all that stuff. If I feel like there's no advantage, even if it's equally as good, I'm just not gonna change because it's a lot of work.
Well, I said the reason that there's so many of the bench race shooters use the March scopes is that we have a very limited range of elevation. It's usually 6 to 8 clicks up and down. So we wear out those little clicks in that little short range, and the March are really, and once they wear out, that scope doesn't hold its point of aim because that erector tube is slightly moving.
Yeah.
And, after that, we're dead,
Yeah. So that's why I use collis.
And so their point of aim stays relatively in the same place.
Oh yeah. Well, and this is I'm not like guessing.
Yeah.
It's been put on scope testers, and you know what I mean. Again, everything's broken until I check it. Right. Alex Wheeler kind of stirred up the pot a few years back with the scope testers, and that's when I started hearing about collis because they were like tracking like no other. So anyway, that's when I started using collis scopes, and to this day, I'm happy.
Right. Well, Clark Kernut, he got that testing on the stand, or we've got that 12-foot target, or we can check it all the way to the extent of the scope, and we'll see what happens with those things. But yeah, the collis is one of the ones that always checks out really well.
Yeah. So for Southwest Nationals,
and what power are you shooting?
It's a 10 or 50, but I always shoot around 40.
Right.
It's just, I shot a Night Force NXS for a very long time, and that was 42. So, again, you know how I mentioned I don't like changing?
Right.
Even when I change the scope, I shoot at the same power just because everything looks the same.
Right.
It's just my brain works that way.
Well, the Night Force engineers will tell you that 40 to 42 power is probably the optimal power for high-powered or high-magnification optics.
Well, So that's what I did. I even though it's a 50 power, I shoot at 40, 42, whatever, and it's just what I do. Now, you were asking about the March. March has a, what is it, 1080?
8 to 80.
Yeah, 8 to 80.
With new wide field.
Yeah, and I took that to Phoenix. I was trying to get it sooner, and I couldn't. And again, I have to be 100% comfortable,
Right.
or I'm not. Again, I don't care what it is. If I'm not 100% comfortable, I'm not going to take it to a big match. But I did take it with me, and I shot it at the mid range. And I got second place. The scope, again, and when I say I need enough time, is I had to. We did a tall target. Jason did a tall target test with that thing, box test, everything, and everything checked out. I mean, so it tracks real good. Now, the other thing that I absolutely freaking love about the Collis is the turrets. It's got 20 MOA per revolution. And these are 1/8 MOA clicks. So
that'll take you 1,002 revolutions.
Well, one, because it's 20. Like my PRCW is about 22 and a half. So you go to 20 and then 2.5 more, right? And it also has an indicator. Whenever you go past the first revolution, it pops up slightly. So when you do that, I mean, you can literally look at it, or you can run your finger over it, and
Feel it.
you can feel that it's popped up. So that tells you you're past the first revolution. And then when you come back, it's got 0 stops.
Right.
So you can't. It's so easy. And the windage, I think it's got like 15 MOA. So it's hard to get lost. I love that thing for that reason.
Yeah.
Also, the parallax is in the center. It's right below the elevation. So if you're right-handed or left-handed, you can just.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to reach
Not
over.
that that's ever happened to me, but.
But anyway, now the March, it's the glass is really good. It tracks really good. The field, the wide field of view, but even that one I was using at 40 power.
Right.
And they said, well, you really need to be using at 80 to really see this. But I zoomed in at 80, and it just looked
Too fuzzy.
Well, no, it's not. It looked good. It just my head doesn't compute that.
Right.
Like I said, it just looks strange, and I'm all about being familiar with things, right? Like I'm sure you do as well. You have all these mental images of what the Mirage looks like,
Right.
And how much you're supposed to hold for it, and if the image looks different, all of a sudden it doesn't compute in my head.
That looks like it's twice as fast.
Yeah. But that's how I kind of do things, and so anyway. But so far it's a good scope. I'm testing it, and we'll see how it goes. But
Is it going to the Worlds, or are you gonna?
I don't know. I know the Collis is for sure, and the March again. It's on loan to me, so I don't know. I need to talk to them, see if they even want to let me use it down there. But again, it's so far it looks good.
Fantastic. And so I was going to add, well, that was one of my questions was what were your typical power settings, but you just told us about 40 powers.
And that's it. Like I don't move it.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, you back it off, and if the Mirage is heavy, nope.
Well, I've seen some variable scopes, and I haven't shot the Collies to have any opinion whatsoever, but there's some of the variable scopes that when you start changing the power, so goes your point of aim or impact as well.
They also have focus breathing.
Right.
Most people don't know what that is, but as you change the power, the focus changes. And yeah, that's again, I don't like changing anything.
Right.
I'm at 42 or 40 always.
Well, when you're shooting good, you don't want to change anything. So on your stock, I know that you've used the Shirley Brothers stocks. They were the first ones to actually incorporate the carbon fiber stringers in them when they started making them for us. Why do you like the Shirley Brothers as opposed to, everybody out there has to have the new longer generation stocks or the Z-Rails?
I hate changing. That's probably going to be the theme of this whole thing.
Oh, so you can't use that same. After 3 times, that answer's out.
I hate changing. It works. And yeah, look, because you don't just change the stock. you got to change the stock. You got to change the rear bag. You got to try different fill. You have to this, that, and the other.
Well, it repositions everything too. Your joystick is now here or there, somewhere else.
And,
you know.
And I'm like, this works. I'm not gonna it works for me. I'm not gonna change it.
Right.
I was even they don't make those stocks anymore. So
Right.
I was even I went as far as to have that stock scanned, and I have the scan so that if I want to make some more, I can have them made.
Right.
Because I'm not changing. They work. However, at SHOT Show, I got to talking to Robert Brantley and Mr. Tom Manners.
Yep.
And I think I'm going to try their F-Class stock, the Manners. I know they've had it. They probably don't even call it F-Class stock anymore. I think they call it ELR Light,
Yeah.
which is what bringing it back.
Yeah.
So,
That's the one I used to call the boat paddling. Tom used to get mad at me all the time.
but they, the reason I like those is you're done. Like you get the stock, you bet it in, and you're done.
Yeah, well, that was really the original low CG stock in F-Class.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna try some of those. Just again, the World Championship's gonna be over. It's gonna be time to start testing, playing around with some other stuff.
Right.
But again, I'm not gonna throw away.
So you can,
What I
I
have.
can tell the viewers that this be the time for them to try to kick your ass
Oh, they will. And
while you're testing.
well, they will. Regardless, nobody wins all the time, and F class is such a sport that nobody really dominates.
Right. Have you tested any of the other stock that have the Z rails or have opinion on them or anything?
Nope. I haven't
Just stuck with what you
tested-
got.
Yep, haven't tested anything in
Do you run
10
stock
years.
tape on your stocks?
yes,
Do you use the clear, or the brown Teflon?
clear.
Clear. Just to keep them looking pretty.
You have to. I mean, you have to look good, right?
Well, if you
That's
don't,
rule number
if
one.
you don't shoot good, at least look good doing it. Okay, that's another sheet down. So we're still on your gear right here. Looks like Eric's getting hungry over there.
Yeah,
Bear,
I need
feed him a
some-
cookie before he gets mad.
Sugar.
I was gonna save that chocolate for me, but go ahead. Eat it.
Sorry, boss. There's some bacon, caramel.
Oh, I'm good. On your barrels, you typically shoot the Brooks barrels. What you shoot the 1.25 diameter? Have you
Yep.
ever tried any of the taper ones, or you just stick with what you got?
I don't like changing.
You don't like changes, do you? Huh? And a twist,
9.
9 twist.
I've tried 8.5. They work.
Right.
Just get 9.
You feel that there's any potential disadvantage to 8.5, maybe overspinning the bullet, or you just the 9s and the hybrids are just happy?
There's no feel with me. I've tested them.
Yeah.
The 9s seem to ag a little better. So I shoot.
So if you had 2 barrels left in the bucket and you had to go to the Worlds next week, it'd be the 9.
They seem to ag a little better than the 8.5.
Yeah.
Again, no feel. I test.
Well, I'm the same way about certain twists and everything that I like, and it's just from experience. The guy comes, hey, man, everybody shooting the 8.5s. What do you think? Well, everybody's winning with the 9s, though. Yeah, everybody can shoot whatever, but if they're not winning with it, it's not any good.
I've talked to some people. They're like, yeah, I just built this 284, whatever, and I put a 1 in 7 twist on it.
Why?
Why? Oh, somebody said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
What have they ever won?
it's real simple. Honestly, nowadays it's real simple. And this is what I tell people. Just copy what the people that are winning are doing and get it working for you.
Yeah.
Once it's working for you, at least now you know you can make it work. You can change if you want, but I don't tell them that they're probably not going to want to change once it works.
Yeah. So on the length, John Meyer, who shot the 284 and then switched over to the 300 WSM when he really started tearing the world up. He went from 32-inch barrels to 30-inch barrels. Do you have any feeling on that, or there again you don't change?
He actually didn't go to 30s. I mean, he did. But
Boy, he went to
that's
some
not-
28s as well.
Well, I know the magic number, but We're just gonna leave that one hidden for John. to tell
Right.
us when he's under the. Anyway, one of those barrels that I took to Southwest Nationals was a 30-inch, and the only reason for that it was a 284 Shehane, and when I got this new Wheeler reamer, this PRCW, I set it back and cut off 2 inches and rechambered it. So I ended up with a 30.
Is that the one you won with, or was that?
No, that was the 600. But also, the one that I took to England was a 30. And I mean, they shot really, really good.
Right.
The only difference is the one that I won Southwest Nationals with is a 32.
So, in your chronograph work with those two barrels, what was the difference in
There
velocity?
was no difference.
Yeah.
And that's why I prefer the 32s. Because speed-wise, they were the same, which tells you the pressure's higher for
Right.
30. They tuned at the same speed.
Yeah.
But so I'm stomping on the 30 more. So 32 is gives me a better, just less pressure.
Okay. So you had to raise your load up to get the same velocities out of your 30.
Yeah.
Did you see any accuracy difference because of the shorter, stiffer barrel, or not?
I couldn't see any.
What about tuning? With the tuner itself.
I'm trying to think. They were just both really easy to tune.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't find them hard at all to tune. I don't know that there was enough difference. There wasn't enough for me to tell the difference.
Right.
So I'm gonna say there was no difference.
So in your interview with Ken there at Bartline, he mentioned that he felt that the 5R rifling.
With Frank,
Frank, I'm sorry. I know another Ken Green, and he'd probably be mad at me now in Oklahoma. But I mean, he mentioned that he felt that there was an advantage to the 5R as opposed to the standard 4 groove. What do you have any thoughts on that either? Have you ever shot any other ones just in testing?
I have shot the 5Rs a long time ago. I think Krieger used to make them. I don't know. I think
Yeah, they still make them.
so. I don't know if it was a Krieger or Bartline that I tried a long time ago, but again, I usually don't. Whatever I learned 10 years ago, I immediately write it off as me not being experienced enough to really tell the difference.
Right.
So I don't rely on that as knowledge.
Do you?
So-
not mean to interrupt you, but do you keep, before I forget? Do you keep notes or anything that you can build a database on, where you can look back and say, oh, this, and this, and that. I see a trend develop over the course of the years.
I don't, and I'm going to start because I never saw the value of it, and now I do because I'm like, I've had some really good barrels, and I'm like, God, what? I have no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, see, I pin everyone. And back in the old day, I used to pin and slug them, but now I found that you can almost find the defects in the barrels with the pins, and if you want to call it a defect, but I've got all those notes, and I can see what the winning barrels were over the years and their dimensions on the insides and and there was definitely a trend in the 6mm barrels, and that's where the 237 bore came from. Almost all the barrels, and I think if you buy a Brooks, I think it's a 236, 243 bore and groove diameter, and all the barrels at that time, that's what they used to be. And when John Krieger asked me to make my first bench press barrels, I said, since you told me at the SHOT Show that you could build any dimensions I wanted, I said, in the shilling barrels that I'm shooting at the moment, they're typically supposed to come to me 236 with 243 groove diameter. But all the winning barrels I had have been from 2368 to 2372, and so he goes, we can build. We just build,
yeah.
the one you want, and then when they came, every one of those barrels was just on fire,
So
and we just wound up with a 237,
yeah. So you asked about the 5R. I'm gonna test them. I mean, Brooks doesn't make them, but again, I'm gonna test them, and
Well, I think if somebody in your position, even though you may be sponsored by Brooks, owes it to the viewership to test them, to give an opinion on them, because
like I
people
said,
are looking at you nowadays to not only expose them to different things on the internet shooting aspect, but they also want to know, what do I buy, or what's your experience on
and
it?
like I said, it's I'm gonna test it just because if there's an edge, I need it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know how it is when you're shooting. I mean, I'm going to the World Championship,
Yep.
right? Typically, I would only chamber one barrel. I say needed it, and that's the difference between being on the off season versus the year where I'm trying to win. I won't chamber one barrel and go shoot it. I'll chamber 3, 4, test them. This is kind of Todd Hendricks does that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Todd, I don't know how many he chambers, but he'll just run them all, and he'll bring the best of whatever out of those 5. And because here's the thing, right? Like, let's say you have 10 barrels or 5 or however many you have. Let's say 5. And you chamber the next one. And then you test and you're like, man, this barrel shoots really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the World Championship and you lose by 1 point, right?
Right.
Then you come back home and then you chamber the next one. The next one's a Hummer barrel.
Yeah, just
And then you're just going to kick yourself.
right. Well, that's what I used to do. Schilling used to allow me to go in there and look at the lots of steel that they had on the floor, and I'd say, well, make me. You could buy. I think those lengths of steel were like 20 feet, And I said, well, make me however many barrels that one does, and then put about 4 sticks of each one of those off to the side for me, And as soon as I would get them, I would test them, and I'd come, well, lot A, that's what I want. Make me those other 4 sticks out of that,
Yeah. So that's kind of the benefit, because even if you chamber all 5 of them and test them, that doesn't mean you throw away the other 4. You just keep them.
Yeah.
Right. That just means you get to use the.
Well, I was
best.
fortunate enough to be able to sell them to the prairie dog hunters. They weren't good enough for bench rest, for world class bench rest. So I would sell them to the prairie dog hunters. They were all happy,
But anyway, that's kind of how I go about it, and I understand. Not everybody can do that, but if you can, I would suggest that you do.
Yep. All righty. So here again, I'm going to refer to another interview that you had with Norm Harold, and y'all were talking about the virtues of the 284 and the Shehane as opposed to
Masterclass, like Norm would say. 284 Shehane, masterclass.
Yeah, masterclass. Here we go. But and y'all both talked about some of the issues you had with shooting the big magnums, the Psalms, and the 300 WSMs, and so on and so forth, and it took a lot more effort to learn how to shoot those guns, and it's true. The recoil, the torque is all exaggerated. But yet you won the Southwest Nationals with the 6.57 PRC or the Wheeler.
Uh-huh.
What changed your mind? The velocity increase?
That's just I tell people that's just a Shehane with a fat ass.
Yeah.
It's not it's called a Magnum, but it's not like a 300 WSM.
Right.
Well,
I know it puts it kind of between the Shehane and the Psalm.
Yeah, it's not like you're going from a 284 to a WSM. That's a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
It is a big jump. The PRCW is a very slight jump. I mean, my Shehanes, they either tune at 2880, somewhere around there, 2850 to 2880, or, they kind of tune around 2920. Some of them might shoot at 2920. So going to the PRCW at 2930, it's like shooting a Shehane.
Right.
It's just the difference is, this one that I took to both of them, they're shooting about 2950. So there's really no difference between that and the Shehane.
Right.
In the sense of recoil. I mean, I can shoot it just as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had to change nothing.
Right.
So.
Well, I said, I was telling you when I listened to all these videos, I listened to them one time, and then when I'm eating lunch one day, I'll listen to 15 minutes of the next one, and I'll sit down with my notes this time. So, when I hear things like that and I see a change, I'm curious about it, so I'm assuming if I'm a competitor and a gunsmith and can do all that stuff myself, the average guy out there, he's he may have listened to that same thing. Well, no, Erik shoots, PRCW, and that's, and like I said, it's considered a Magnum case.
No, it's called a Magnum.
Yeah.
But that's just, again, to me, it's just a Shaheen with a fat ass.
One other thing I like about it is you get away from that semi-rebed bolt face where it puts so much bolt thrust.
That's my point. It's got a fat ass. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shorter. It's fatter, but it's shorter. So case capacity slightly more than a 284 Shaheen. It's not, and you can.
What's the loading capacity on it? I shot it back in 2000.
If I remember correctly, it's 70 grains of water.
Yeah. I shot it back in 2019, in the fall of 2019, and then kind of just dropped it because some of the issues we had there at the shop. But I mean, when you put you shooting the 555 in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Triple nickel.
And where does that powder come up in relation to the base?
Oh, it's full.
Is it full?
With 555, with triple nickel, it's full.
Yeah.
So what I do is I drop with, and I don't have a drop tube with my Prometheus.
Right.
So I drop it, tap it on the table twice, and then I see the bullet. So it's still not.
Is it just because of the short drop tube on the Prometheus?
Yeah, I think that's
if you had a longer drop tube.
If I had a longer drop tube, because 2 taps and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's still compressing it, but it's it's not the end of the world. It's a compressed load.
Yeah.
But it's not drastically compressed.
Have you tried the other powders, the Reloader 16 or the 4350, or you just start right off with the triple nickel?
I started with a triple nickel. Actually, I didn't start with a triple nickel. Now that I remember, I started with 4831 shortcut.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to burn up my triple nickel.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Let me try this.
That's right. It is kind of a limited quantities.
Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try 4831 shortcut, and that's actually what I took to the mid range. And it shoots just as good.
Yeah. And how much powder?
It's one more grain. For the 4831 shortcut, but it's less fill ratio on the case because it just packs a little bit tighter.
And how much was that?
58.5. This is where we got to do the disclaimer. This is works in my chamber, not in yours.
Yeah.
Don't use my loads, whatever. Do this at your own risk.
Yeah. Remember, we just like to send those bullets out with their ass on fire. So.
Yeah. Triple nickel is 57.5, and 4831 shortcut is 58.5. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very close to each other.
You haven't tried any of the 4350 at all?
No, I don't have any of that. I mean, I do have some, but we set it aside for the Neatmore series.
Okay.
So it's got too much. We got too much going on around here. But I haven't tried 4350, or I know some people are trying Reloader 16. I'm sure 4350 worked because it works great in the Psalm.
Right.
So I'm sure it'll work just as fine. But triple nickel is like, oh man, it's so easy to use.
Mm-hmm. How's it work as far as cleanup and fouling?
I don't clean it every time.
You don't see any difference in fouling?
No, not really.
Well, almost all the new Vitivori powders have that anti-coppering agent. Is it one of the powders that has that as well?
Yeah, and it's very temperature stable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The 500 series used to be known as not being very
right. Well, all those double
stable.
base powder, nitroglycerin, nitrocellulose.
This one is good. I like it. I mean, I just won with it, so I love it.
So, are we going to see a change? No more Shaheen?
I don't know that my number one barrel, the number one that I'm bringing to the world is a Shaheen, just because it shoots like.
Right. Do you feel though if you had chambered that with PRCW, they would probably shoot as well?
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. But I'm gonna bring that PRCW that I won with. I'm bringing that to the world as well.
That'd be a good test that when you get back from the world, winning the worlds.
Exactly. Thank you.
Bring that 284 Shaheen back
Set it back.
Do the same thing that you did as a mid-range gun.
Yeah, what I hate is that well, it's not that I hate it, but the Shaheen is longer. So you can't just run a reamer in there. You gotta set it back. Everything's bigger, but it's shorter.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Shaheen that I have, it is, boy, it's a good one. and it's tuned at 2920. So
Right. So
I'm not
you're not losing anything or giving
And
anything
again,
up.
this is a world championship, right? If I only get one more firing out of that brass, I don't care.
So the next question, and I probably don't even need to ask this, but on tuners, I know whose tuner that you use, and I think everybody else does too. Did you use your standard tuner, or did you use the new V2 on the guns?
I use the V2.
And just thread it directly onto the barrel without extension?
Yep.
I like the extension on there on the tapered barrels because it kind of sets the tuner out away from the muzzle a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of people do it that way. And we actually offer the adapters, we offer them with
Right.
a taper in the back for the smaller barrels, but we also offer them straight. So people that, like, I know Gary likes the little extension.
Yeah.
So if you want an extension.
Oh, you got the extension now for the 1 1/4 as well? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask me about that, and I said,
yeah.
well, I'm going to ask him during the interview, and you just
Yep.
answered my question before I
have
even got a chance to. Thanks, Eric, for ruining my interview. So on your tuners, when you first start out on one, do you typically do your load development first and then work the tuner? And I mean, every day, do I need to take my tuner off to do my load development? I said, no, you just don't move it.
Yeah, leave it alone. Change one thing at a time, right? The way I do my load development, it's changed over the years. Now I set my bullet at jam -20,
Right.
just to make sure I'm not in the.
So does that leave you still into the rifling slightly?
Yeah, I'm in the lance. After you measured them for
Right.
me, I found out. I figured because I can see the marks in the bullets. but-
Yep.
So I'm in the lance. This one's for Todd Hendricks. I'm in the lance, Todd.
He is in the lands.
Todd hates that term.
What does he prefer to
He
use?
calls it jamming, and I said no.
Well, no, that's not the same thing.
Oh, well, anyway.
Touching and jamming is two different things.
I know.
Now, you jam it, it's staying in there
Well,
if you open that bolt.
We've had this discussion over whiskey, and
Well, no wonder he does.
but anyway, the point is, I'm in the lands, but I am away from hard jam. 20 thousandths. I just stay away from it, just so I don't want to stick a bullet in there.
And you use a 1 degree, 30-minute throat on your gun?
Uh,
A degree and a half?
So anyway, I get away from jam,
Right.
and then that's where I seat it, and I start my load development.
Right. Well, I was going to say that with most typical 1 degree, 30-minute throats in the gun, that if you hard jam it to where and open the bolt, leave the bullet in there, and you take that measurement, and from that measurement back to where the bullet just touches the rifling, like if you use a COAL gauge, that's typically somewhere about 24 to 27 thousandths from those 2 points,
Yeah.
So when you say you jam it and then come back 20, that should leave you, anywhere from, 4 to 7 thousandths just touching that rifling. Which in that situation, you can close the bolt, open it, and the bullet stay in the case. You won't have that problem.
Yeah. So I just come off 20 thousandths from hard jam, and then I start doing my powder test.
Yep.
And then I just do my powder test until I find. I'll test multiple primers.
Right.
Powder. I'll pick one powder, test it with like 3 different primers, and whenever I find a good combination that shoots really low,
Right.
ES. SD.
Don't jump into my reloaded question.
Okay.
Yet.
Well,
But
so
yeah,
I forget what the
continue.
question was. So anyway, I do
We're
that.
using a high. Yeah, we're doing.
And then-
the question was, do you do your load development first, and then
So I do that first.
and then how do you adjust
and
your
then-
tuner?
And then I adjust the tuner.
Yeah.
After that.
And so, do you move out with the tuner, or do you move in with the tuner?
Well, okay. This is with this new tuner. It's only one way to go. It's in.
Towards the shooter.
And this is this has been very hard on some users because they go, the numbers are backwards. I'm like, no. The instructions are the same. Start at 0 and work up.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, but one tuner goes one way, the other tuner goes the other way. I say, yeah, but the numbers, just follow the numbers.
Yeah.
And they say, well, with the old tuner, as the numbers go up, the tuner is
Moving it.
unscrewing.
Yeah.
He goes, but this one, it's screwing in. I said, follow the numbers. Just go up.
Yeah.
So the numbers are backwards. But so the point is, with a new V2, you go up from 0. You start at 0 and you go up from there.
Right.
So that's going to move the tuner towards the shooter.
Yeah. And how many increments do you move it at a time?
I have 1,000-yard range, so I recommend that you do 5. But what
5 numbers at a time.
5 numbers at a time. What I do, of course, I did that, and I haven't proven this enough to be able to just tell people. But this is what I've been doing lately, and it's been working. Again, at 1,000 yards, I go in 10 increments of 10,
Mm-hmm.
one shot. So what I do is I'll do a ladder test.
Right.
I do 0, one shot, 10, 20, 30, and I just go and I cover I go up to 150 or so, like 15 different shots. I would do 15 shots, right? So that covers however many revolutions that is, right? And then I back it off again, and then I'll do another ladder test. So I'll do like 2 or 3 ladder tests.
So it's kind of round robin as you're moving.
Well, not round robin. I just 0, 10, shoot, 20, shoot, 30, shoot. And I just aim at the same place the whole time, right? And then I look at it and I see where they cluster, right? And then they start, it's literally a ladder test. And then they start open up and they'll move around. And I just look at the clusters, right? Then I'll do it again. And then again, I'll go look at the clusters. And then I'll do 2 or 3 times. And then I'm like, okay, this range seems to always have, in those 3 different tests, they all seem to cluster from, let's just say, from 30 to 60. And it's going to be a pretty big range.
Right.
And that's why this tuner is lighter. So it gives you a wider range. The original one was heavier so that you could find it in one revolution.
Right.
This one is lighter. And it's so that it shows a wider node. Okay. So I do 1 shot each. Again, it's just a ladder test. I'll do 2 or 3 different ladder tests. And then I see where they cluster. And then I go in the middle. And then I'll shoot groups, like 5 or 10 shot groups.
Right.
And if there's multiple clusters, I go to those clusters and I shoot a group there. I go to the other one, shoot a group right in the middle and see how they're doing. And then I shoot on both sides of that cluster, left and right. And sure enough, one will go horizontal, the other will go vertical. And then in the middle, it's just
So when you say both sides, it's 5 this way and 5 the other direction.
Yeah. So
okay.
let's say if I'm at 30, I go to 25
And 35.
and 35, or sometimes I just go to 20 and 40.
Yeah.
And typically I go in 10 just to see. And then
Well,
I'll
when
shoot
you have
groups.
a wider range like that, it really tells you real quick.
Yeah. So, and then, and that's what I did with this rifle. Before I went to Phoenix, it got really cold here. And I looked at the weather in Phoenix. I'm like, well, it's going to get cold over there. So I went out to the range in the cold, in the wind. And I was going to test different tuners. Well, I went to go test different tuner settings. And the tuner setting that I had when it was hot
Yeah.
didn't shoot as good. So then, because it was colder, so then I'm like, okay. Typically, if the temperature goes up, I move the tuner's number. The V2 is the tuner's numbers go up. So move the tuner towards the shooter if the temp goes up. If the temp goes down, move it away from the shooter. But this is in relation to where you first tuned it,
Right.
not just a random.
Random. Yeah.
So I went and it didn't shoot as good. So I'm like, okay, I need to go away from the shooter. And I went 10 marks and came right in. I shot a 20-shot group, actually 22, like I would do in competition, 2-siders, and then I went 20 for record, and I shot a 200 with 15 out of 1,000. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So when I got to Phoenix, it was cold just like it was here. Everything was the same. And I said, well, I'm going to start here and see how it goes, because I had unlimited siders, right? I said, if it doesn't shoot, I'm going to test, lower number and then higher on each side and see where I'm at. And it shot good, so I'm like, okay, it's fine.
So in a test like that, when you're at the match with unlimited siders, what would you consider a good sample test before you would adjust your tuner?
It's real easy, right? Because it's real easy for me anyway. And any experienced shooter is going to say the same. Because when the gun is on point, right? You shoot, and it'll, let's say you hit an X, and then you shoot another one, and you know that nothing has changed in the conditions, and all of a sudden the thing shoots a 10 over there, and or even side to side, even if it's waterline, but it all of a sudden it does this, and then you pull it in, and now it goes the other way, and you're like, okay, this is not a good tune, even though it's flat. A lot of people only look at the vertical.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Death on a stick.
Yeah. So I have those clusters written down. So if that doesn't work, I did it at Bayou. I did it on video, and I didn't explain what I did, but
that's when you were shooting against
Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
And people don't know. They think I'm just randomly changing it. I'm not. I test those clusters that I was telling you about, and if it doesn't shoot there, I shoot on each side of it. Just a few shots to see if it's shooting on point.
And there again, when you say each side of it, you're off the number of your original
on the
tune.
Numbers, yeah.
Right.
So again, if I'm at 30, I'll test 40 and 20 and see. And if that doesn't work, then I can go to the other clusters that I had when I did the letter.
That's when you get the rosary beads out. And
yeah. But usually that first left and right will tell you everything you need to do. And oftentimes, even if it's shooting, I'll do it anyway to see if I need to shift one way or the other, because I want to be right in the middle. But anyway, when I got to Phoenix, I had just tested it the day before. That's the beauty about flying too. I'm starting to realize that, because I can test one evening here, and literally the next day, I'm in Phoenix.
And testing there.
And I can test. But that's what I did, and it shot good, so I just left it alone. The last day, it was starting to get warm, and the gun started to open up. And that's one thing that John Myers taught me. He says, Phoenix is such a tricky range that, the guns fall out of tune because of the wild temperature swings.
Right, you can have 45 in the morning and 105 in the afternoon.
And he says, he said that was his favorite range to shoot at because of the wild temperature changes.
Yeah, and he was a master at the tuner.
Exactly. And he says that the guns fall out of tune, but they fall out of tune when the mirage is real heavy and the wind's up. So people automatically blame the range. They never look at their guns, because it's not easy to say, well, that's the gun, because it's mirage is.
Yeah, see, that's what we do in bench race the entire day.
So, it was starting to open up, but it was still good enough that I left it alone. Again, I'm not like John Myers yet, to the point that I can just go and move it willy nilly.
Yeah,
like he did.
Well, I'm sure he probably showed you his database.
Oh, of course he did. I learned a lot from John, and I'm probably telling more than I should, honestly. But he, after I won the Southwest Nationals, of course I let him know, because he helped me as well. And he said, "Did you move the tuner?" I said, "No." He goes, "You should have. You would have won by a much larger margin." I said, "Well, I won. Let's just be happy for that." Yeah. But I said, "But yes, I did notice the gun was starting to open up towards the afternoon on the last day, because it started to get hot. But it held good enough." And again, I attribute that to that tuner.
Right.
That I gave it a larger node. And again, there's a lot of things.
There's that
in
N word. I like window or
window. Okay, window. But
before, let me interrupt
there's a lot
you.
that went into that new tuner that John Myers helped me with.
Right.
But again, like I said earlier, I'm a competitive shooter. You can buy the tools from me, but I'm just not gonna go tell everybody exactly how to use them.
Right.
Because, at the end of the day, I'm a competitive shooter. Right.
Yeah.
Like even Brian, when we had the discussion, he's like, "Well, just tell me how to use them." I'm like, I can't, because all you're gonna do is go tell everybody else.
Right.
All I can tell you is they work. That's it. And I've proven it, at least to myself. I've proven it to myself. They work. And just go to bench rest, or go shoot a bench rest match or F-class match, and just go long range bench rest. I'm sure you guys use them on point blank, but But go to long range. It seems like everybody has a tuner, But anyway,
it's funny when you get to the ELR. I don't know if it's because you have to have such a big muzzle brake on that thing that they don't have tuners on. I mean, I've seen a few, but it's not as prevalent as you see it in F class and in bench rest and PRS.
Yeah, well, they I don't know, but I know John David Mann shoots, and I know he has a tuner.
Yeah, well, we built him one, and then
Yeah.
so did Alan Warner. It's behind the
Yeah, and
I just don't know if they work.
I started the whole behind the muzzle brake trend when I started shooting PRS.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it all started when I was shooting those money matches. I was like, how do I put one of my tuners behind it? So I did it, and ever since then, and again, it's all about just the way the sport has evolved.
Right.
And I love it, man. It's I did an interview that hasn't aired yet with John Krieger, and we talked about tuners. And I don't know that he knows that I make tuners, but he was explaining to me how tuners work and why they work, and it was pretty interesting.
That in bench rest, when our guns start to go out of tune, we say that they start bucking. And next time you talk to Jack Neary, you might ask him about it too. And what it does, the recoil of the gun changes completely. So when you notice a gun going out of tune, is there anything that you can feel in the gun, or is it just strictly you're just seeing it on the target?
Well, I see it on the target. Like I said, the guns, they're not on point. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I've shot clean scores before, and people will say, man, good job. And I'm like, no, that gun's not shooting.
Just pure luck.
And they're like, how is it not shooting when you shot a clean score? And I'm like, that was all luck.
Like, that should have been 19 X's with that.
Like that gun is just not shooting. So again, this goes back to experience. When you have a good gun,
right,
you just know. It just goes like this PRCW that I shot at Southwest. The wind would come up, and I'd move and shoot and X. And then I just stay there, and then I'd see it die down. I move in, 10 or X. It was just.
Well, it's just you've got a gun that's just working.
It's like a hat on a string.
Right.
It just went. It just seemed to just drop them in there. The points that I dropped were me going, man, I don't know what this wind's gonna do. I better just jump in, even though I haven't shot in this condition.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and just get out of here because I know it's consistent because I was watching the other shooters near me. So I'd make an educated call, and I'd miss it slightly. But once I knew my wind hold, then I just finish it off, right? But those are kind of the points that I dropped. At 900, the first day during the Palm, it was so windy that the points that I did drop, like I was surprised I didn't drop more.
Yeah, you're shooting for survival.
Yeah, and it was just horrendous. So those points, and even the ones that I dropped, I dropped 4, and it was just, I was thankful. in the morning, I looked at that and I'm like, man, what would I be happy with? And I'm like, man, anything north of 440, I'll be happy. And I shot a 446, so in my head, I was 6 points ahead.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't shoot a 440.
In F class, dropping the point is the unforgivable sin, the mortal sin, whatever you want to call it, because then you're just praying that everybody else is going to drop one. So and I do this when I go to the line, I look at the conditions, and I never try to put any more pressure on myself than needs to be. So I say, and there's always that one guy who's just going to do something incredible regardless. As the highest win that we ever shot, and the guy just shoots clean all the way, But, when I look at the match, I said, if I can get out of there shooting, I'll use Bart Sauter's 1/4-inch ag, If I can get out of there with a 1/4-inch ag today, I'll take it all day long, And so that's what I strive to shoot. If the conditions change or I'm presented with something a little better, I'll bear down a little bit. So when you get to the range in the morning and you look at the conditions and you think it may stay this way the same day, do you set a goal for yourself, or do you just say, well, I'm going to lay down there and see what happens?
Well, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like I said, those 9s that I shot, I was okay with 9s.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, in my budget, because I would say, okay, if I can get out of here with a 196 or higher,
that's why when I look at it, I say, if I think that a 1/4-inch is going to be good with my experience, there's probably a bunch of these people are going to be shooting 3/10 or bigger, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't have to worry about them. They're just that one little handful, more or less like in the nationals.
Yeah.
You know, that you have to worry about. You know.
Yeah. So I looked at it and I go, okay, if I can get out of here with a 196, I'll be real happy.
Right.
So I'm sitting there with a 199 or 198, and I'm going, okay, I have 11 shots to go, and I'm here. The wind's getting up, it's switching, it's doing all whatever it's doing, right? And it's higher than what I had been shooting in. However, the guy next to me is just pounding tens and X's.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, okay, I don't know what this wind is. However, it's consistent.
Yeah.
And I watched it for a few shots. I have a 3X rule. If the guy next to me shoots 3X's in a
I
row,
shouldn't be sitting here.
I'm exactly right, because you can't. It's hard to shoot 3X's in a row. So I'm like, so he shot like 3 in a row and tens and X's. I mean, and I said, okay, I'm okay with a 9. It's in my budget. I'm gonna jump in.
Right.
So I made a call. I missed it, but it didn't matter. I moved over and I finished it off.
Yep.
I dropped 3, and I'm like, good. That was above what I had expected. So I was still happy.
So you have to. The word I was looking for, I guess, was a strategy or the tactics for that.
Well, you
match.
you have to be experienced enough to know what's going to win.
Right.
Like at 600, I kept saying, "Oh, a clean is going to win it. If I shoot a clean here, it'll win. Clean will win." So I didn't have. There was no. Oh, I'll drop a point here jumping in, because I knew I couldn't.
Right.
So.
Well, so you set your mindset at that right before you even start. You know, this is what I have to do.
If you do that at long range, number one, it's never going to happen, because especially in those winds, nobody's going to shoot clean for 3 days. Number one, it's never been done, and those winds were so bad that definitely not.
Yeah, I saw those flags. They were out there popping. Yeah.
So you can't go in and go, a clean's going to win. Oh, of course, a clean would win it. However, you have to have some expectations.
Right.
Realistic expectations, right? So again, at mid range, I'm like, a clean will win it, and it did. There was only one guy that shot clean. I dropped 1 point, and I got second place. At long range, I kept saying, well, and to be on, I kept saying, giving myself budgets, but to be honest with you, I shot above 99% in those wins, and I won by 2 points. And those 2 points were made up at the very last string, when it was not as windy, but it was switchy, right? But you just have to have some expectations, and if you go in and achieve your expectations and you don't win, oh well.
I did the best I could.
Exactly. Right. And
I did everything I set my goals to do,
but
I just didn't win.
people will go, shooters will go and shoot below their expectations, and then they're trying to make it up on the next one.
All right.
It's like, you can't make it up on the next one. And sometimes I joke and like, man, I need to shoot a 12 on this one. I need to shoot a couple of 12s, and it's obviously not going to happen, right?
Right.
But it's those things that you need to be aware of, and you need to be.
And that's the thing that's hardest to teach a new shooter. They may put the time in it and the money into it, but if they can't see what you're talking about, and that's what, when you were talking about F-class John, and you told them this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
But it's hard for people to go out there and lose. That's one of the benefits I've always had. I'm not afraid to lose.
You have to be good at it.
Yeah.
You have to be good at everything, even losing.
Yeah.
You're going to do more losing than anything.
That's why I say you can't shoot mad, and you can't shoot scared, because once you're on the line, you get mad, then it's just screw it, I don't care, and then when it's all over, man, if I just shot like that all the way, I'd have won this thing,
but
I was just throwing stuff down there because I didn't care.
Yeah. So, and I told John, and I hate picking on him or bringing him up, but he's a great example, because he's such a good shooter, but he'll shoot scared.
Yeah.
And then he'll shoot mad.
Yeah. Well, he can.
And then once he gets all that out of his head, he'll just go and win the whole day.
Yeah.
And I said, look, all you have to do is put 3 of these together.
Yeah. Fear and anger are the 2 most detrimental conditions that you ever shoot in.
Yeah. And again, he's obviously has the skill.
Yeah.
Because on the last day, he shot perfect. He not only did he shoot perfect, he beat everybody.
Right.
This is the national. This is not your, this is not you at the
Club
ranch.
match, yeah.
Well, even at the ranch shooting against your drinking buddies. This is best shooters in the world. Arguably. So anyway, so again, he has the skill. He just needs to tighten up that
Right.
mental game a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you
And
got to
he's
be
getting there.
mentally tough. I mean, when you're shooting over the course, one day you go out there and you do good, but it's not one day. It's 3 days or 5 days at our nationals.
You just don't have to. You just can't be afraid to lose.
Yeah.
That's the scared part.
Yeah.
Like going into the last string, Tim Vaught looked at me. He goes, "You hustler, you you just cool as a cucumber."
You just
Going
keep doing what you've been doing.
And I said, "Well, if I lose, I'm gonna be just as happy for Bill. I'm not gonna. I've been doing really good.
Yeah.
If I lose, I lose. And I dropped 1 point, and I didn't get pissed off.
Yeah.
The minute I dropped that point, I could have gotten really pissed off and go, "Oh, I just left the door open." 'Cause
And drop 2 or 3 more.
exactly. I dropped the 1 point. I didn't care. I just kept doing my thing. Just kept shooting.
And there, in reality, you don't even know if Bill's dropping 2 or 3 on his target, and you're mad like, fuck.
Exactly. So I dropped 1 point and just kept shooting, kept reading that wind, kept moving around, kept dancing with it,
Yep.
And when it was all said and done, I dropped 1 point. My X-Con was good. And I was okay. And I'm there. I signed a card, took a picture like I always do, and I'm putting my brass away. And here comes Bill, and he goes, "How'd you do?" And I said, "Drop 1." And he just shook his head. He goes, "I dropped 3." And I'm like,
See, I
Okay.
predicted 3.
yeah. But again, he could have shot clean because a lot of people shot clean on
Yeah.
that one. But I wasn't, when I dropped 1, I wasn't upset. I was just like,
It was
was
in my
nothing I could
budget,
do.
like you said.
yeah, I mean, it was a corner 9. I shot an X, a 9, and an X. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
That thing just, again, if I wasn't meant to win, I wasn't going to win. And that's all there is to it, the way I look at it.
So we're still on our gear pages here. So
Better hurry up.
on our the trigger that you use Flavio's.
Flavio Flores. Yes, sir.
You just right out of the box. You reset
Right out
them
of the
lighter,
box.
heavier. Or?
I try to mess with them, and it's like I can't make them better, so I just
Yeah.
shoot them as they are.
Okay. And rest, you're using the new Neo X,
Yeah.
the controversial Neo X.
I don't know why it's controversial. I mean, it's
Who started that?
I have no idea, but that thing just hammers. I mean, I love it. It's so compact. It's compact, lightweight, yet very stable.
Right. So when you go to the line with your rest, your rear bag, what manufacturer is it?
Oh, it's an Edgewood.
Edgewood.
Yeah.
And how do you fill those bags? Soft, hard?
This thing is
Heavy
filled,
sand?
It's heavy, really heavy. As heavy as I could get it.
And the material on it?
It's got the leather on top and the black. It's the old. I mean, I've had this
Okay,
bag
so
for
it's got
10
the old
years.
Cordura.
It's like 10-year. Did I mention I hate changing?
Yeah, I
It's
think
this-
I've
I've had
heard
this-
that somewhere.
This bag is so heavy that it's cost me so much money to fly this thing around the country because of how heavy it is.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't want to experiment with not right now. I'm taking this thing to the World Championship.
Right.
After the World Championship, I already have another bag here that I'm experimenting with some lighter fill and different things. But again, right now I'm not in the experimenting.
Right. Yeah.
phase.
You have to win the world.
Yeah, I got to go win the World Championship. and
So
then-
what other gear do you take to the line? Do you take your gun, your rest?
So I have a backpack, and in that backpack I have my rear bag.
Mm-hmm.
I have an elbow pad that I use. I have my headphones. I have and I have pens in there, and I have a clipboard, and I have some tools in there. Pretty much.
When you're shooting, what do you have there in front of you?
So I have a timer, and well, now I use my watch. I used to have a timer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a loading block. I have that's it.
So you use your scope as your.
Yep, I use
so-
my scope.
I say, when I teach shooting, I teach the economy of motion. Do as much as possible, as little movement as possible. So you described it, but you didn't say it. But as you fire the round and you open the bolt, it seemed like you were telling me that you keep your eye on the conditions. That you don't take your eye off those conditions, and yet in the economy of motion, when I teach it, I'll see the guys. They'll bring their MTM box with 100 rounds in it, and they'll have their little target that they can, and so they'll shoot. And they'll look to their spotting scope, and they'll take their paper and they'll write down whatever their score was, and they take the ammo and they put it back in the little hole it came back with. And the conditions have changed 3 or 4 times. They go back there and they shoot, and then, well, man, the thing went out to the left, you know. So do you feel that all those are distractions in competition?
Absolutely. The way I describe it when I teach is I said you have the option to look at snapshots of the condition versus a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you think you're going to be able to keep up with the most? Well, a movie, right? Because sometimes it changes very little.
Yeah.
But it changes very little multiple times in a row. And if you're looking at it and then you go and do something else and then you come back to it and you go, it's the same. Well, no, it changed very little, enough that you couldn't tell. And then you do that again, and then you look again, and you're like, okay. By the time you pick it,
right.
By the time you notice it, it's too late or it's big. Whereas if you're looking at it the whole time, something you see it pick up, die down, and something you see it pick up and die down. Like I see that.
So you'd recommend, and eventually
well, hang on, let me finish this one because this is important. I just realized, something you see it pick up and die back down, and I hold off because I'm like, something weird's going on. So if you're only looking at it and it's like it's the same, it may have just done something weird, but because you're just looking and shooting, you didn't see that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have this weird
that
shot.
weirdness is still out there.
And it makes no sense. But if you keep looking at it the whole time, you'll see it where it just does this pick up, die down, and it dies down to the same, but it did something weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't shoot. I wait until it stabilizes. And then I go back to shooting.
Well, that's what we call it, keeping our head on the gun. You know, keep your head down. You know, if you're popping up like
yeah. So some of those things, again, I don't even think about, but it's very important that you do that. At least I do. And a lot, most.
I'd have to agree with you there. I mean, I don't. When I see those people,
maybe we should have had this after the World Championships.
Oh, don't worry, they'll try it. And they'll be so out of time.
You're
that
right.
They won't
It's probably better that they go try something new.
Okay, so we're to the rests. So we've been talking, and some of the things have kind of translated in some of these other things about loading. So, when I teach a reloading class, I have the 2 trinities. Basically, yours, which is bullets, brass, and barrels.
Yep.
And then the other one, which is neck tension, powder, and bullet seating depth.
Okay.
So with those 2 trinities right there, brass, bullets, and barrels, that's more of the mechanical side of the gun right there, know.
Right.
So with the and how those relate to each other is how your outcome comes out. If you don't know how to put the bullets and the brass in the barrel, which the barrel includes the chamber and the crown and the tuner and everything, it's not just the barrel. You have to have a good barrel to begin with. But so when you're addressing those 2 trinities right there, bullet seating depth, neck tension, and powder, and there again, that all goes together on your barrel. What do you do, if any, when you get a batch of barrels in from Brooks or from Bartline or whoever? Do you have any selection process whatsoever, or you just
For the barrels?
right?
No, I just shoot them all.
You don't have any yourself.
I mean, I shoot them all.
Right.
And again, I guess once I'm done with the powder test, and I'm gonna start to see like, oh, this one really wants to shoot. You know what I mean, they just kind of have their own signs that I can tell they're.
And there again, what we found, or what I found, and there again, I keep extensive notes, almost like a doctor does in the office. I said I used to slug and pin them, and now I just pin them, and that was where I find that trend. Also, my criteria for selection of a barrel, I'm going to say that the manufacturer says that my barrels are plus or minus 2/10. Mm-hmm. That's the manufacturer's tolerance, but that doesn't have to necessarily be my tolerance. So with my Deltronic pins, I can select a barrel that just with the measuring of the pin, I can select a barrel that is plus or minus 1/10 of a thousandth, you know. And in that selection process, I've seen a larger group, when I find them within that certain range, perform a lot better than the ones that are at the manufacturers. That's not saying that I can take one of the standard manufacturer's barrels and get my ass kicked it for the next 2 years, you know. Yeah. So John Myers was also another one of those people who I taught how to pin, you know. And I mean, I don't know how many Deltronic pins. You didn't buy those from him?
No, he's
he kept a little bit.
I'm not sure he's 100% out of the game.
I don't think so either. So, I mean, how many barrels do you typically go through when you're looking for that world championship barrel?
I chambered 5 this go around, and
out of those, how many would you say were the one that you want to take?
I found 2, like the one in my Shaheen. You know, you talk about the elimination process or the selection process. Mm-hmm. I took it out, and this is actually on video. I just put the load from my previous barrel. Yeah. I went and tuned it at 100 while we sighting it in, tuned it, went back to 1,000, and it shot a 1.7 inch group for 7 shots. Yeah. I mean, for 5 shots. And then I did 2 and 15 for record on a regular 1,000-yard target. Right. I think I shot a clean with like 13 X's at 1,000. Yeah. And I'm like, this is a good one.
Oh, good.
Well, of course, I didn't select that load. That just showed me like this barrel is very good. And then I worked up a load, you know, because I don't, even if I just stumble onto that load, I want to make sure what's on the other.
To verify it.
What's on each side of that?
Can we rewind this for 1 second? I meant to ask you this when you were talking about your tuners and how you adjust them. For the shooter that doesn't have 1,000-yard range to verify his tune, what would you say the minimum range
I've
would
done
be?
It at 100.
Yeah.
To me, if they don't shoot at 100, they won't shoot at 1,000.
Yeah.
A lot of people think otherwise, and I did at 100 forever. And again, this one that I'm telling you about, we tuned it at 100, and we went back to 1,000. It was ready to go. Yeah. So I think if it doesn't shoot at 100, I don't think
I tuned my ELR gun at 100 and clean targets all the way out to 2640. You know, so
yeah, it's you know, so
okay. On bullets, you just mentioned we were talking about the tuners that if it doesn't shoot at 100, it won't shoot at 1,000. There's often times when a bullet will shoot at 100, but by the time it gets out to 1,000, it's no longer happy.
Yeah.
So would you blame that on BC?
Yeah,
because it has to be. You don't believe in the convergence and all that crap, do you?
It has to be BC, right? I don't think there's anything else that can make them be together. And all of a sudden, if they're together with low SD and ES, and they start to come apart,
right?
The only thing that can mean is that they have different BCs,
right?
You know, that one of them, they have different amounts of drag, which means some are going to slow down faster than others.
Some are going to speed up. Well, I think you can see that on some of Brian Litt's, custom curves, when they start shooting at those ELR guns. So on your selection process, do you measure base to tip or base to ogive? I know I've heard you discuss it before, but
base to tip, and then I just point.
Just point?
Yeah.
So once you've got them separated, it's easier to point those as our uniform lengths.
Yep, and then I change my tipping die depending on the
length.
On the length,
right? So that base to ogive basically a waste of time.
Before somebody asks or before somebody tries to do this, I go and test.
Make sure you're not ruining the bullet by tipping it.
Yeah, I test the batch, multiple different, and I go test them, and
Yeah.
When I find what works,
Yeah.
then I tip the others.
Yeah,
Don't-
let me
don't
go
don't
run 1,000 unobtainium 180 hybrids through this and find out I just ruined 1,000 bullets.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. I don't know. You got to test everything. This is kind of the problem.
Okay, so
You can't just trust everything.
this is the 3 Bs again. So in the barrel process, we're gonna put that other B, the bullet, into it, and a lot of times I'll have customers buy their own reamer and they'll send it to me, and I ask them what their freebore diameter was, and a lot of the bullets, I'll just use a 284 hybrid. They measure 284.4, 284.5, and when the die starts to wear a little bit, they're 284.6, 7. And so if you have a reamer that you ordered with a standard freebore diameter of a 284.5, which is a standard nominal size for a reamer, I can't get the correct seating depth. It changes every 5 minutes.
You're letting everything out of the back.
I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, so I don't use the standard freeboard diameter.
You don't have to tell me, but you
I
do.
don't use that 284.5. I go bigger.
Yeah.
Because of that. What you're just saying exactly.
Right. I mean, if you had the old Sierras, I mean, that's why they used to have those smaller bore dimensions in the 30 caliber barrels when they used to shoot the 168s. They would fit in a 308.5 perfectly. Because they almost all measured. Anyways, not even 307.9 to maybe 308.
So here's what I'm going to tell those that want to get a PRCW chambered. Alex Wheeler designed this thing, and Alex Wheeler, he very knowledgeable guy. So if you want to get a barrel chambered, you can get Speeder to do it. You can get Alex Wheeler. You can get Jay Christopherson, or you can get Jeremy Smith. Those guys all have the correct reamer. What I would say, the correct reamer.
Yeah, if you want your own, I mean, Alex has made that available through JGS if you want to print.
JGS, you can call actually Manson Reamers.
Yeah, Manson
has my
well.
reamer. Has my approved reamer, and you can just call Manson Reamers and say, hey, where's Erik's PRCW reamer?
Yep.
And they'll send you a print. But there's a lot of people taking this thing and just changing it it seems like everybody wants to change something.
The improved version.
Yeah.
If you want to improve it, might as well shoot the WSM, the RSOM, I mean.
Well, Alex Wheeler calls that the WSM, the RSOM the hard way.
Yeah.
They made an RSOM the hard way.
Yeah.
Because it's already made. But moving, when people move dimensions around, they call that an improvement.
Mm-hmm. And that was,
Hardly ever is it an improvement.
yeah.
It's just a change. They called it an improved. Well, improved just, to them, it means they move stuff around. That doesn't mean it actually made an improvement.
Right.
So keep it simple. That's all I can say. And it's going to work for you.
Is this going to be your first 4-hour live stream?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know how long we've been at this. But I can use another cookie.
Okay, you eat cookie. I'll ask some questions. So back to the bullets again. You're starting to see custom bullets come into play in F-class. I don't think they're dominating anything at the moment because I don't think there's been enough experimentation done on it like we've done in bench rest. Do you feel that custom bullets may become more prevalent in the future as components become more available?
If you had asked me this 3 weeks ago, I would have said yes. However, I took a tour of Burger Bullets.
Mm-hmm.
They make a good bullet. I looked at everything they do, their inspection room, their process of making sure everything's running properly. Every 10 minutes they check. They have these different buckets, and those bullets are going into those buckets. And every 10 minutes they have a check. And if something doesn't check out, they stop it, and they know that only that what's in that bucket is questionable.
It's a 10-minute bucket.
And every time the machine is stopped, a new lot number is started. Okay? So and their inspection room is, I mean, they had, obviously they have access to machines that I couldn't even afford.
Mm-hmm.
So after looking at Burger bullets and how they make bullets, I'm like, I'm not so sure I can make them better.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, I shoot some amazing groups with them.
Oh yeah, I've seen the groups come out of those 180 hybrids. It's just astonishing.
And I'm not so sure that I can do better. And I'm not so sure the average guy can do better. As you know, bullet making is not something you just decide to do and you just go do it.
Oh no, it's a labor of love and pretty expensive. You're probably gonna have 10 or 15,000 before you get that first bullet.
Yeah. So you know, I'm not so sure that they will dominate simply because of how good the burgers are and how much it takes to make bullets.
Right.
Just you're gonna spend 10, 15 grand to make your first bullet. That doesn't mean it's better than the burgers.
Oh no. Just the shape of the bullet as it comes out of the die. You may have two dies made exactly the same when I made them, and one is a world beater, the other one is a prairie dog bullet. You know.
Yeah.
So, and there again, the bullets that we make are made using the J4 jackets from Burger. So.
Yeah. You know, you guys shoot 100 yards. You don't even need good bullets for that.
Oh yeah. bring that 284 to the next bench press match. Okay, we're done.
I'll bring some Corlocks over there.
To the third B, and that's brass. And I know that Lapua is the gold standard, but there's a lot of U.S. manufacturers starting to manufacture brass. Do you see any, or have you tried any to compare? Say,
I haven't. That's the thing about brass is there's so much work. You know, I mean, I neck turn, I fire form, and you know what I mean. It's I don't know that that's something that I've never tested anything else. I mean, okay, well, I have shot other manufacturers in the past,
right?
And it was you do everything that you do to the Lapua brass, and then some, and you still don't have a brass that's as good as Lapua, right?
Right. When John Myers first started shooting WSM, he bought, I think, 1,000 of the Winchester brass, and so what did you do? And that's when I introduced him to the little case checker, you know. So the next day, he was scrapping the brass. What's that brass you get, Norma?
Yeah. No, I try that too, and you know, Lapua is just so good. Honestly, it's literally too easy.
Well, like I said, it is a gold standard. So you do anything to your brass, the primer pockets, the flash holes?
I neck turn it and that's
weigh
it.
the brass?
Nope. Neck turn it, that's it.
Yeah, basically what I do.
Yeah.
Neck
And
turn
even
it.
a lot of people are getting away from neck turning.
Yep. Well, don't get into the next pages. Slow down a little bit. I know we're trying to speed things up. So the other holy trinity there again was the powder, the neck tension, and the bullet seating depth. So in your reloading process, you already told me you start off 20 thousandths off the jam, and that's where you start doing your powder testing.
Yep.
And I asked you, and we already answered this in a previous question, that at this point you kind of feel for the particular cartridge, PRCW, that the 555 seems to be the best powder for that cartridge.
Well, it's the best I found. You know, I've tried 4831 shortcut. It also works really good. I don't know that I would say it's the best,
Right.
But it definitely works like right away. Like the extreme spread is super low.
Right. So we got we're going out there. What load did you say you were shooting? You were shooting 40? 57
and a half. Yeah.
57 and a half. I'll just check and just make sure that.
So just for comparison, you know, we talked about how much bigger it is than the Shihane.
Right.
4831 shortcut, it's 58 and a half with the PRCW. With the Shihane, it's somewhere around, maybe it's just a grain less.
Yeah.
Grain and a half. So it's not that much more.
Right. You're
And
just not pushing the brass as
And
hard.
speed, yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
You're getting the velocity without the detriment of it. So we've got our bullet seeing depth, our initial bullet seeing established, 20,000 off the hard jam, which is still slightly into the rifling as we've seen in that one video. And then when we go to line, are we looking for low ESs and SD right off the bat? And let's just say that you go to line and this thing is just shooting dot after dot after dot, but the ESs and SD just suck.
I don't go about it that way. I don't even look at groups until I can get a stable load.
Okay, so and when you say stable, that's your ES and
Yes,
SD. Okay.
SD. Like if I don't even care what the groups look like,
Right?
Because I can always tune the tune.
So that's our
the groups.
when you guy goes out there, the first thing we're hunting for is that low ES and SD.
Yeah, that's the first thing. That's why I test different powders, different primers.
Right. And that's in the quest for that.
Yeah, and
so that's your other holy grail number right there.
all the members of my website, if you're a member of my website, you're a member, and they'll see that the first thing I go after is
I can't read English. So
a stable, a stable load, low ES, low SD. I call that combustion.
Right.
It's internal ballistics. I get that. I got to check that box first because I believe you can make any load shoot good at 100 yards. You can get good groups just about anything.
Right.
And again, everybody has different parameters to what they would consider a good load. But the first thing I do is if it doesn't shoot low ES, low SD, I'm not even going to pursue it.
Well, that kind of goes in conjunction with what we were talking about earlier. If you have a high ES and SD, and you see those groups at 1,000 yards open up, well, and you're blaming that on ballistic coefficient, that would be wrong at that point because it could be just your ESs and SDs.
Exactly. So that's why I get that figured out first, have a load that shoots really good, and then I can start testing.
Right.
Now, I have a very simple way to figure this out. If you shoot a load that shoots really low ES, low SD, and it shoots small groups at 100 yards, and they won't shoot at 1,000, then it's the bullets.
Right. But if you have the high ESs and SD, you can't blame the bullets any longer.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't know what it is.
Exactly. So you got to get those things in check first. Now people go, well, what about neck tension? You got to get the neck tension. If you don't have good neck tension, you're not gonna get low SD to begin with.
Right.
And yeah, those are things. It's in your trinity, right?
Are you psychic? Next question is neck tension.
It's that neck tension is obviously it is important, but if you have a good loading practices, that's going to be in check, and that's why I use lapel brass. That's why neck turn. That just takes care of itself.
Right. So if you had the option, and I know a lot of people are shooting, no turn necks, and there again, guys are just lazy. If we don't have to turn the necks, and I can go win a match, and Bart does it, but he's got a pretty extensive brass selection process. He doesn't just take 400 pieces of brass. Okay, let's go shoot them.
Yeah.
So, in your neck tension, if you watch Jack Nary's video, he's got the shoot thin to win. And a lot of people think that he's talking about you have to have a thin neck.
Turn thin to win.
But it's thin to generate a clearance so that bullet. The brass can expand and release the bullet without too much interference. Yeah. So you just told me that my next question was, do you turn or not turn? If you have the choice, and I know that this requires a lot of time and effort and money, or I can just shoot the no-turn brass and maybe just use the expander mandrel. Like a lot of people are saying that's all you need is the expander mount. You're going to get a consistent neck tension. Well, how can that be if you've got a thick side and a thin side?
This is the way I look at it. I'm not saying neck turning or no turn doesn't work. I've seen, Tim Vaught, he shoots cleans at Bayou with a no turn. However, this is the way I look at it. In 2017 at the Nationals, the record at the time was 217. I shot at 200 with 16 and I had 2 shots that were as close to the X ring as they can be without being X's. Okay. So I didn't get the record. I didn't tie it or beat it. To this day, I'm okay. It just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Why? Because I neck turned. I did everything that I could to prepare for that match. And when it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Now,
But you prepared for it.
had I decided that I'm not going to turn necks and that had happened, I'd be wondering if turning necks would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just be kicking myself for the rest of my
So
life.
you're just eliminating all the variables.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that I just don't want to hate myself the next morning because if you don't do everything you can,
Well,
at least for me, if I don't do everything I can to ensure that it's as good as it can be, then I'm gonna just always be
without
wondering.
doubt. Well, that goes to that third person you mentioned, preparing to win.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the preparation to win. So as far as you turn your brass, how much clearance do you typically?
5 to 6.
5 to 6 thousandths. And if you didn't anneal, how long would your brass last before you started having split necks and all?
Well, I wouldn't never not anneal.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So-
I mean, now that you've used the amp annealer as opposed to the old flame annealer, you see there's quite a difference in the process.
Well, I love the amp annealer because I have that amp mate and then that brass
Right.
feeder, and I just throw it all in there, hit the button, and it's awesome. And it's the same every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it would be like. Again, this goes back to I'm gonna do everything that I can
We had every type of
to
annealer.
prepare.
Yeah, we had every type of gas annealer for them, and we bought the tester, and
Yeah.
we could never generate brass as good as it came from the factory. You know,
Yeah.
it was almost just a waste of time, a feel good thing. You know. So you got 6 thousandths, 5 to 6 thousandths net clearance.
Yep.
And how much typical neck tension do you find? Do you have vary with different burning rates of powder, or like
I've changed over the years. I used to run really light neck tension until I went to Phoenix one year and the bullets settled in the case and I shot like crap, and I couldn't understand why until one night, 2 things happened. I decided to pre-seat and just don't change it. I'm like, I'm tired of this whole seating before the night before. Yeah. So I said, I'm just gonna load all my ammo and just shoot it. And this is Jay's fault, Jay Christopher, because he does that now. Except mine were real light neck tension. Well, it was shooting like crap. So I checked them, and they were all over the place. So I was like, okay, no more of that. And Todd, he uses a lot of neck tension. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use more. I'm not going to use like Todd does, because he needs to put a cheater pipe on his freaking on his arbor press. I don't need a cheater pipe. But I size down. What do I do? Let me give you some numbers. My loaded round is 310. My bushing is 306, and my expander mandrel is 282. So I size down 4 thousandths, and then I expand 2
2000s.
Yeah, and I played around with 305 and 306 bushings, and they're about the same. Obviously, they're slightly different. There's more neck tension with the 305, but they're, so I do about 4 to 5 thousandths squeeze down, and then I neck up.
Right. So you've got an amp press now.
Yeah.
And so you can start developing a
So
statistical analysis.
I was gonna say I like about 50 psi or so on the amp press.
With the amp press, have you seen a difference in seating when you expand it up with the mandrel? And let's just say if you're trying to achieve that same inside diameter with a bushing.
I have. And it's just not as consistent with the bushing.
Now, are you lubing your necks before you run the bushing, or are you just running them?
Do you mean the mandrel?
Mandrel, I'm sorry, yeah.
No. I have. I started making my own mandrels, and we use a special coating. They haven't been released yet.
All right.
So they don't need any lube.
Okay. But do you lube the necks prior to seating the bullets in them, or you just shoot them?
Nothing. If I need
just as
lube
annealed?
Just annealed.
And that leaves a little bit of carbon left in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then I run a brush in there.
Yeah.
And it's in my progressive. I made a die that has a brush.
Right.
So when it goes up, it just brushes one time, and that's it.
That's how we do it.
And even that stuff that I use for Southwest Nationals, my progressive press is tied up right now with my automated bullet pointer. So I actually used a coax for that brass. So we didn't use a brush on that one. But I find that if you need to lube the bullets to go in the case, you got too much neck tension. Like, back it off. You shouldn't have to use any lube to seat the bullets.
Okay. I just
That's
know
the way
if that lube made a change in the consistency.
The way I look at it is this. Whatever you put in the necks transfers to the bullets. Whatever you put on the bullets transfers to the barrel. And again, to me, it's going to be inconsistent. So it just scares me to even try. Because, number one, I don't need to try. It works.
Right. And I know you've addressed this in some of your other videos, but I'm still going to ask for the new guy who may be watching this for the first time. You don't chase the lands.
Nope. I seat it and forget it.
And you'll just
unless let's say my gun starts to fall out of tune.
Yep.
Like this gun that I have right now that I just got back from Southwest Nationals. I got leftover ammo, and they're seated long. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna seat some, 3,000s longer, 6,000 longer, and then I'm just gonna shoot them.
Yep.
Practice and see how they do. If the ones that are longer shoot better, that's my new seating deck.
That's what you'll take to the world.
I'm not gonna measure the where the lands are or none of that because even if I did and I moved it, then I have to go verify.
Yeah.
And then I would have to test on each side of it
again
to make sure.
Right.
So might as well.
Okay. Well, this one we can almost skip because we kind of walked through this entire thing. I'm about to reload it. And then development for a new barrel. Break-in. You don't believe in it?
Nope.
I don't either.
I load up 50, 100 rounds. I go practice.
Yep.
Come home, clean it.
I shoot one, clean one, and go shoot.
I don't even do the one and clean. I clean the barrel.
Well, you are a lazy bastard. I know that.
I clean the barrel before I go. Right. Clean it. I actually run a little IOSO on the throat area.
Right.
Just in case there's anything there.
A little burr or something.
Yep. And then clean it. And then I go to the range and I usually take a load from the previous barrel. I may back it off half a grain to a grain. If I need to fire from some brass, I load it up and I go, and then I use the tuner to bring that load
back in
to where it's good enough for practice.
Right.
And then I just go practice.
So let's see. We've gone through almost all of these right here. What sample size, when you developed your load, do you feel comfortable with before you go to a match? Let's say you've got a load. How many times you can go verify that before I'm ready to go take it to a match?
Well, I shoot 5. I mean, my most of my load development is 5 shots. I mean, I do ladders, like I was telling you,
right?
Because you can do a ladder test with powder, which I do.
Yeah.
You can do a ladder test with seating depth. You can do a ladder test with tuner settings. You can do a ladder test with whatever. But then after I kind of find an area that looks to pattern pretty good, like things want to get happy at that point, then I move up to 5-shot groups, and then I go outside of that range, and then I shoot a few and see if it's trending properly, right? If you have a group here and a group here and a group here, I don't like that. Once I do that and I'm happy, then I start shooting for practice. 20 shots, 15. Right. Typically, I practice with 15 shots. Just practice actual wind reading and keep them on, and see how they behave.
Right. So on your range, I see you shooting, and you don't have any flags out there, so you are basically a mirage reader.
I'm a mirage reader.
Yeah.
Yep.
So especially when you go out in the desert and stuff, that mirage can get so bad.
And
I love mirage, and people most time when they say, look at that mirage, I got to turn my scope down 20 power, whatever.
I don't even turn it down.
Yeah, I don't either.
But so that's what I do, and when I go practice, I don't load my load all the time. Right. I mean, I do, but I load on each side of it as well. I'm always trying to see how much latitude I have on my load.
Correct. So back to Mirage again, since people are looking at your videos and you're shooting pretty good groups on there, and now we know that your secret is you don't care about the flags. You're watching Mirage down there. Do you have any initial stab at the angle that the Mirage is coming to you at, or
No,
do
I
you
don't care.
you just look at the float?
I just look at the flow.
So do you? When I shoot Mirage right there, since we can see the numbers and stuff on our targets, short range, we can almost see it without
You don't
the
even
scope.
need a scope
Yeah,
for
we
that.
don't need a scope. If you get a new pair of glasses, I can see them. But everybody says, well, how do you know what Mirage you want to shoot at? So I picked something that's real easy to determine. So when I don't like shooting in dead calm because there's just stupid stuff happens there. But with the Mirage, when I see that number just start to clear up, that's an indication that Mirage is running at that pretty much that same velocity, And now it's blowing hard enough to where the Mirage is starting to clear up, and I can see the numbers. I can see it when we shoot New Braunfels. I can see when those numbers on a target start to clear up. So that's my indicator. That's the velocity I want to shoot at. I don't care if it's 10 miles an hour, 20 miles. As long as I can see that and it keeps repeating, I'll shoot it.
Right.
So, do you have any rules of thought as concerning Mirage for a newbie can look at that Mirage and say, it's maybe a good place to start?
Doesn't matter what I say, they're not going to understand. They have trigger time, right? So what I tell them is go out and don't even try to compensate. Aim center.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Just
And
watch
then
it.
just watch it and go, that's going to go to the right. The first thing you need to figure out is it going left or right?
Uh-huh.
And just aim center and see, right? And that's going to be the first class. So the first thing, you need to be really comfortable making up your mind. Is it going to the left or to the right? Because they will, it may seem real easy depending on what they're looking at, but there's going to be times when they really can't tell.
Right.
So number one, left or right, that's it. Don't even care how much. The more it moves, the easier it is to tell.
Right.
But when it's real calm and boiling, it's really hard.
Yeah. Well, we're coming at you, it looks the same.
Yeah.
We're going away
So
from you.
just do that. Hold center the whole time. And even when it's blowing, have a target with rings and things. Just a regular target that has the rings. And then you can say, well, I think this is going to blow 2 rings. And aim center and shoot and see where it lands. At some point, you're going to be able to tell,
Right.
You'll get good at saying, well, that's 3 rings worth of wind, or that's 1 ring. And you'll get good at that. And once you do, again, you're aiming center the whole time. Once you figure that out, at some point you'll be able to, and the next step is like, okay, if you look and you go, that's 3 rings worth of wind, we'll hold 3 rings to the left, opposite of the wind, and it should be center, right? But they try to do it all to, like, oh, I'm just going to hold off, and then it hits over here, and then they really don't know how much it moved. Don't do that much. Just take it in steps.
So while we're talking about this, you said just hold center, see where the wind takes you. Do you try to set your guns up with a dead air zero? Because I know every time I've shot with Nancy and Michelle, that's the first thing Nancy lit. You got dead air zero on it,
Oh,
I'm a point blank shooter. We probably got better dead air zeros than any of the F-class shooters do out here.
That's a controversial topic, man, for us long-range shooters. I prefer dead air zero at 100 yards. I prefer that because that is it is a consistent starting point.
Right.
It's consistent.
Well, that's when you're saying, well, if I hold center and my bullet drifts over to the 9 ring, that if I had a good, if I was behind the condition and the wind's blowing left or right, for an example, and the value it's giving me is not a true value because I'm actually shooting over here into the left to begin with, know. And that's when people say, well, man, the wind just left a little bit, now it's an 8 on the other side. Well, that's why, because you don't have a dead air zero.
Oftentimes people, they get scared in the wind because it's like, it came from the left and it went left.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you don't have a good zero.
All right.
And they think it's the conditions. No, it's
That's
you.
why you can't be ahead or behind the conditions. What the condition? That's why I tell the guys. I say, man, if a gnat farts on your left side, it should move to the right.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that are This is back to not being set up when you show up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll ask right now, how many people have done a tall target test?
I know,
I
man.
guarantee you not many, but it's so important. They want to
Right.
go shoot long range.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shoot long range. Well, you got to get ready to shoot long range. How many people have a level on their rifle? And how many people have done a tall target test and verified that they're actually tracking straight up that line?
Yeah.
You know, most people have never done it, and then they go and they're frustrated because they can't hit anything and they think it's them.
Right.
No, it's your setup. It's wrong, but things like that.
That's one of the reasons it's so hard for the point blank shooters, like from ours that try to transition to F class or one of the longer distance shooting styles, is that since our movement, like I said, is so minimal in that scope right there, they never test that right there and there. Right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's go do a tall target test, and they're like 4 inches off the top. Oh, you got that scope on there, right, buddy?
Yeah. But anyway, it's there's a lot of there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen before you even go out.
Okay. Last one on reloading here. Dies. I know you're coming out with some new dies
Soon.
soon. I've seen them. They look pretty promising. Can't wait to see the
They
finished
look
ones.
great. We're just trying to make them work now.
Yeah.
You know, number one is you got to make them look good.
Yeah. And when people walk into your room, ooh, look at
Yeah, look at that.
that. You have any of those?
Like fine
No,
wine,
I'm sorry.
Like this.
Uh-huh.
They're going to show them to their friends like
Yeah.
this. No, but
They're too pretty to use.
yeah, we're testing different coatings.
Mm-hmm.
We tried some coatings, and I'm not super happy with. But again, I don't want to put out anything that
Right.
you can get anywhere else.
But as far as resizing is concerned, I noticed when I was doing that impromptu seating depth test that your cartridge was considerably looser than most of the ones I've seen that people bring me, you know,
What do you mean looser? In the chamber?
in the chamber.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you reduce the diameter at the shoulder and the base a little more than most people do?
Yep. And so this is it's really hard.
Well, it kind of goes back to when we were talking about the actions about
So
closing
yeah,
and
yeah.
opening.
So it's really hard. Like I sent a die to somebody for testing,
Mhm.
you know, and we're testing a coating, and anyway, it didn't work out. And you know, obviously, I appreciate the feedback, and we're gonna try a different coating. We're gonna send it back to the same guy and make sure it works out for him. But the point is this: he tested it and he said, "Hey, the bushing is sizing a certain way. That's not how I like it. I prefer a different way." And so now I'm at the point where what do I do? Do I do what I know works, or do I do what they want?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like,
I would think that if somebody is trying to follow the Cortina program, that they should do what Erik Cortina does.
yeah, but I know, but that's the hard part, right? Like I just and I've been kind of kicking the idea around of like, what do I do? Because when they size with my dies, they might say, "Well, I've never seen this before. This doesn't look right."
Right.
Well, that doesn't look. It does. It's not that it doesn't look right. It's just that it doesn't look familiar.
Right.
And as you know, we do a lot of things to our stuff that shooting off the shelf stuff is most of the time not the best way to go because off the shelf is it's not optimized.
Well, it's generic. It's got to fit in everything on the planet.
Well, it's not optimized for the utmost precision.
Right.
So yeah, he's like, I don't, I would like my bushing to. So what it was is it had my bushing doesn't size all the way down to the junction,
Right, because it's got to.
and he's like, I want it to size more, and I know that's gonna be problematic, but that's what he wants, right? So at that point, it's like, what do I do? Do I do what I know works, or do I do what customers want? And I go back to Henry Ford, where he says, if I had asked my customers, they would have asked for a faster horse.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, do I give them a faster horse? Or do I give them a car? You know, which is what Henry Ford did. So I think I'm just gonna have to give them a faster, give them a car, because I know they keep asking for a faster horse, and I'm like, no, look, here's a car, and that's the problem sometimes, that about releasing something, because I'm like, what I know, if most people came into your shop and saw what you do, number one, they wouldn't even understand what they're looking at, right?
Well,
Because
I have that all the time. I'll do a class on barreling, and the guys will videotape it, and they'll ask questions, and they're writing down on paper, and a chamber barrel takes 2.5 days, and I don't care. They're paying for it,
Yeah.
But, and then, they get home, hey, I'm at the lathe, and, I'm looking at the video, and I know, but it don't make sense no more, So you're that's the same thing you're being faced with.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, what, I know, the customers, like I said, I'm just, again, what do I do, right? And I think I'm just going to have to give them a car, and those that want a car are going to have to get a car, and those that want a faster horse.
Learn how to drive it.
We don't offer horses.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you're just going to have to learn to drive my car.
We don't rent pigs.
Well, I know you and how quality conscious you are, and I hope you gained a little of that from me, and
I did.
and so I've looked at your dies, the prototypes, and I see great potential in them. It makes it easier for people to do some things without adjusting the entire die. So I'm looking forward to getting some myself. We're back. We mentioned primers earlier, and I'm not going to ask you to mention any brands or types or anything like that, but you do see difference in primers in the performance of the cartridge overall.
Yeah. Well, to me, a primer is a fine tuning of the powder burn rate. Essentially, when you change a primer, you change the powder burn rate.
Right.
That's why you get more or less speed, right?
Right.
To me, that's the fine tuning, and that's why I test the same powder with multiple primers, and it makes a difference.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I do, and that's my initial test.
Nowadays the primers are getting so expensive that people won't test that, and then they're like, well, how do you know you're getting the best performance out of that gun?
Yeah. Well, they typically have one primer, and they'll test the powder, and if that doesn't work, they'll go test a different powder.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's a bad barrel.
Sometimes it's easier, or they blame it on the gunsmith.
Yeah.
That's my preferred method.
Yeah. Like I said, I've got a thick rind, so I'm used to that too. And that's what we're we changed primers to potentially increase the accuracy potential of that cartridge. So you did an interview on the Primal Rights primer seeder. Do you feel that primer seeding depth is as critical to your program as it may be to somebody else's?
I don't know. I've tested it, and I've seen kind of on target at 1,000 yards. I've seen some variants or some that seem to look happier than others. But I think ultimately all what matters is if you're seating the primer firmly against the bottom of the pocket, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's
when you say firmly, you don't mean crushing it though.
Well, don't crush the crap out of it, but just seat it firmly.
Yeah.
And one thing that for example, in this PRCW, I have a hand primer, RCBS,
right?
And I did that for years. I used that hand primer for years.
You don't have carpal tunnel syndrome yet?
Well, so on that CPS, I hate that tube, that primer tube. Every time you work at that.
That's why I cut mine in half.
Well, I knocked mine over 1 million times, and every time I do, Greg gets a call, and I think he's tired of me calling him. But so what I
cut them in half, you got twice as many.
What I did actually is I used the RCBS primer, hand primer, and then I just seat them, kind of light.
Oh, I know what you do.
And then I just go back and reseat them in final seating.
See, you heard it first here. Double primer seating.
But But what I found out by doing that way is that you can't, at least with my RCBS hand primer, when I go all the way to the bottom,
You can't see them all the
it's
way.
not seating all the way.
Right.
So, again, this goes back to assume everything's broken.
Right.
So, a lot of people say, well, I don't need that other primer seater.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now,
Maybe
if you only
do.
have is that, if all you have is that hand primer seater that I have, you will chase your tail forever because it feels like you're bottoming out, but you're actually bottoming out the handle.
Right.
You're not actually bottoming out the primer. So I can see how a lot of people could just chase their tail for a very long time.
Yeah. And be blaming the gunsmith for
Yeah.
the gun not shooting.
So, but there's others that can do the same. Greg's primal rights it's great.
And it looks good there too, even if it.
Yeah. But
Ooh, you got one of those?
21st Century makes one that's adjustable.
Yeah.
Of course, your hands are going to hurt like hell when you're done.
Right.
But again, there's multiple ways to skin the same cat.
Well, another page down. So, look, we're down to the last three.
All right. How's the comment section? Nobody's even commenting anymore, are they?
Oh no, we got a lot going on.
Oh, really?
A lot of people are accusing you of being lazy.
Oh, good.
A lot of content
Eric or me?
The tuners, Eric.
What about the tuners? Let's talk about the comments real quick. Cause,
Yeah.
Let's see. George John Smith.
hang on. You don't have a microphone?
Do not.
He needs a microphone. All right. Let's keep talking while they get your microphone.
Just get over there next to Eric.
No. We got plenty of mics. All right. We'll get you a microphone.
Well, in the meantime, I'll ask you another question. Well, we've already talked about the match strategy. We've talked about the economy of motion.
Probably gonna need a longer cable.
Flags, Mirage, or Kestrel? You've already answered that one.
Kestrel.
Well, I don't know if you might go up the line and say, "Oh,
I see. Okay, I see what they're asking. Well, I guess the reason I had that reaction is, we can't use electronics on the line, right? So we have to read the mirage or the wind.
other than a tablet to see your targets."
Yeah.
Electronic timer to see your time. It's counting down.
The Kestrels, I do not use Kestrels. Because that just tells you what the wind's doing where you're at.
Right.
Anyway. And I know a lot of people do. I don't. So I have three. Here's the order in which I
Order of magnitude.
do this. My best indicator of what the wind is doing is my previous shot. The second is mirage, and the third is flags.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I rate.
Right.
That's how I put them in order.
So if your previous shot is and the flags are still the same, I mean the mirage is still running the same, we're going.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yeah.
That's the only actual arcade bowl. That's back there.
See, we have any. I see them plugged in here. They're under the table. Anyway, we're trying to get the producer a microphone because the producer didn't produce very much. But anyway, so that's kind of how I look at this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's take a Phoenix for example, where you just kick their butt. What is your favorite condition? Let's say in Phoenix.
All right. Here's what we're gonna do. While you talk to them, Speedy. I need to go to the restroom. In the meantime, they can figure out this microphone.
Okay.
So go ahead and mute my mic. There you go. It's the second one. No. Hit the red button.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, Michael, ask me some questions that I can answer.
All right.
I'll just make up some answers for Eric.
Because I can't hear me right now, I'm going to repeat the question when I ask it.
Just pull.
That was muted.
Wait,
camera. That was the whole. All right, you're fired. Turn on my microphone so I can tell him he's fired.
Okay.
You're fired.
Didn't even make it through the whole live stream. Short career.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Right under you.
All right. Is this working?
You're gonna have to. We're gonna have to test it out. I can't tell up until we.
Okay, well, ask me a question while y'all are
Stevie, what tool do you use to prime your cases? Is a $600 primer seeder worth it?
Well, I think Eric just answered that question. In the shop, when I'm doing large quantities of reloading, I use the Primer Rights primer seeder. It's proved to be worth every bit of the money I paid for it and even more. One of the issues I had was the same issue that Eric was talking about. The long primer tube in there, every time you reach something, you bend it or knock it off. And what I do is I cut them in half and drill another hole in it for the cross pin to keep your primers in there. So it's real easy for me just to load 50, put the next tube in there, and do another 50. But yes, the Primer Rights is worth the money. We've even gotten to the point where people that have disabilities in their arms, carpal tunnel syndrome, or have come back from a war with a disability, we put 2 handles on them. I wish Greg would sell an extra handle for those things. He probably will if you ask him. He's a good guy.
All right. They want to know Marge versus Kales or
Collies?
Gollies versus Night Force.
We talked about that a little bit earlier too. I'm not real familiar with the Collies. I typically shoot the March scopes. I do have a few Night Force on my guns, and the only reason I use the Night Force is the scopes are slightly longer, and if I want to address my gun without crawling into it, then I will put a Night Force into those guns that have a longer length of pull. But I'm typically a March guy.
All right. What happened to the Bald Eagle primer seeder for $150?
It went the way of the bald eagle. You have to ask Shroud at Grizzly about that. He's the one that used to manufacture that.
The what?
I just have to raise it more. Which line is that one in?
I don't know. Speak.
Here, I see it. Go for it.
How are we doing? The yellow?
Adjusting your microphone.
Yeah,
All
we're just
right.
adjusting your mic.
See what effort we have to put in to do a live stream?
Well, no,
You're seeing all the technical difficulties
the
manifest
the
themselves for your very
technical
eyes.
difficulties are because you removed me from my chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stole God's chair.
All right.
All right. So the biggest thing going on in the comments has been a huge argument that's
Oh,
just been going on
argument.
for over an hour
Wow.
about tuners.
Okay.
And so George John Smith says, it's so funny to watch Erik willingly make his own results worse by using the tuner. The name itself is ridiculous.
Oh, that's cool. That's okay. He can think whatever he wants.
And
He probably doesn't understand what EC stands for.
yeah, and so there's some people who are defending you, and man, it just keeps going. He does say your competition skills are unquestionable, but that you're just too lazy to measure it.
Well, others measure it for me.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't have to measure them. Well, people are going to have opinions. And again, like I said, not here to argue with anybody. I use them. And that's how the tuner became a thing, my tuners. I was using them for my own benefit. I was actually trying to keep them hidden. That's why the original tuner
Was flush with the barrel.
was flush, so you couldn't even tell that it was there.
All right.
Stephen Blair, he helped me with the design. Gave it to him. I gave him one. He put on his rifle. He goes and wins the California State Championship. Accurate Shooter does a story on it, and they put it on. They zoomed in on that microphone, or not the microphone, the tuner, and that's how people started calling me and asking for tuners. And fast forward over a decade, and that's where I'm at. You know, like I didn't set out to go and I'm going to start a tuner business. How do I get? No, hell no. I was doing it for my own, and I'm still doing it for my own benefit.
Well, I'll defend Erik on this one right here. And a lot of the times, the issues with a tuner or a good load or a good ES and SD is that time spent behind the gun to develop that load with a tuner or to get that good SD. And nowadays, you know, with the price of components and all, I don't think people are really spending the amount of time that they need to get that gun working the way they're wanting it to be, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's I know for a fact, because I've read some papers that are floating around on the internet, and some of these teams that are going to the world, they have made tuners mandatory for their shooters.
Well, I mean, it's your last resort to do something when things are going bad. You've got really two choices. You can adjust your tuner, your bullet seating depth. What else can you do at the match?
Yeah, but again, you know, I'm not going to argue. Maybe I am too lazy to measure results, but others measure them for me.
Yep.
So I don't care.
Well,
you know, it is what it is.
Here's the results right here, and I'm keeping it. I'm gonna wear
What else
Erik's
is going on?
Southwest National Champion
A
medal
few,
proudly.
a few people are asking about you said you were making some of your own dies. They're curious when they can expect to see those come out.
You're gonna see them when I'm really happy with them. I mean, we have them. I mean, I loaded all my ammo for Southwest Nationals on those dies, but I'm not 100% happy. We're testing different coatings, and the coatings take forever, you know, because they're small batches, they're experimental, and this, that, and the other.
Well,
But
I experienced the same thing just making standard heat treated dies that I make. You know, it just they go to heat treat. Oh yeah, well, whenever you get them.
so they're gonna be ready when they're gonna be released when I'm happy with them, and I'm hoping it's soon. But again, I can't. I'm not gonna put a date on it because it's gonna be. It's not a time sensitive thing. It's a Erik's happy with them sensitive thing.
So when you say coatings, I said maybe the average guy may not understand it. These are stainless dies,
yeah,
and then you're having a process similar to melanite.
yes. We actually tried that, and I wasn't happy with it. So we're trying some other things,
Right.
And we'll see.
All right, and they want to know what caliber for the seating dies.
Well, they're gonna start with the obvious ones: 7 PRCW and 284 Shaheen. And we're probably going to
Dasher.
expand into the Dasher. I made some Dasher ones for Speedy.
Right.
Uh,
Are you going to
The
possibly
songs.
offer, like you made me a set of one that sizes the body 2,000s, one 3,000s, and one 4,000s?
well,
Is
no,
something
we're
like
probably not
that
gonna
maybe
do
going to
We're
be?
probably not going to do that for the standard customer.
Okay, well, that was just in the beta testing.
Yeah. I don't think we need to do that for regular customer. We're also doing mandrels and mandrel dies. And all that is being tested right now. We're gonna offer them soon. Now, as far as the calibers, I think the way I'm gonna go about that is once I release the dies, I'm gonna put multiple different calibers on the website, and I'm gonna take pre-orders, and whatever gets ordered, we're just gonna go down that list. You know,
Yeah.
instead of me trying to guess what people want.
Yeah, let the customers decide what you need to make.
Exactly.
All right. I had a few questions. Speedy, do you offer bolt / action / ignition system services to the general public?
Yes, we do. Yep. Number 3,
Yeah, just lower it a little bit.
lower.
Lower. There. So, what was the question? I missed it.
And
Sorry.
That's if we offer action blueprinting
Oh.
services.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's typically mostly to the fire control. We do check to make sure that the lugs are touching and the face of the action square. But
all right. And so for new brass, do you really need to shoot them all without an ejector and seat it into the lands on the first and second firing to avoid case head separation on later firings?
on what type of chamber, match or factory?
That's not included in the
It
comment.
needs to
there,
be
so.
touching the rifle. The bullet needs to be touching the rifle.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to remove the ejector.
Well, maybe some of the factory. That's why I'm asking. Those factory guns, they got like a 12-pound spring in that thing.
Yeah, but you can do a false shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million ways you can go about it. I don't think most people are comfortable removing the ejector. I mean, you know what's going to happen. It's going to fly off into the black hole in the reloading.
Yeah, that's why when you remove it, you buy a turkey bag, and you put it in the turkey bag, and then when it shoots out, it stays in the bag. Trust me. It's never happened to me, but I've heard stories.
All right, and if any of you have questions, now's the time to ask. Ruger24 says, do you find seating depth changes or improves your groups?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what? Let me go back on that. What I just thinking about the guy that said I make it worse by turning the tuner.
Yeah, we can go back to that comment.
Yeah,
here.
I was just thinking about that because it makes. Before I comment on it again, I'm gonna.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a little bit before that. If you want to hear the whole.
Yeah, let's
story
not
of
hear.
it.
But anyway, I think he said something about that I make it worse by turning the tuner.
Yeah, well,
if I can make it worse, I can also make it better. So.
Yeah, make his own results worse by willingly make his own results worse by using the tuner.
Yeah. Anyway, so if I can make it worse, I can make it better. So logic. You gotta use logic every now and then. Go back to let's talk about the people that are not stirring the shit because those are the ones that guy.
Those are
that
ones
guy.
that
We're not gonna change his mind.
yeah.
You know, he's.
We don't need a troll.
He already made up his mind, and if he uses logic, he'll realize what he just said.
All right, here, Speedy. Have you tested other American brass, and what were your results?
The only other brass I've ever tested is a Peterson, and I've had excellent results with it.
All right. Erik, do you remove the ejector from Jim's bolt or order it without a whole machine in the bolt face?
I don't have ejectors. Okay, okay. Now I just realized what the question is. No, I order without an ejector. And if you have an ejector and don't want to use it, remove the spring but put the pin back in there, so you don't get a bunch of crap in that hole.
Let's see here. Earlier, somebody had a question for you, Speedy. I think it was, have you ever seen somebody left-handed shoot right-handed professionally and successfully?
Yeah, me. Yeah. I'm left-handed, but
Shoot a right-hand bolt.
I shoot rights typically most of the time.
Why is that? Right eye dominant?
Well, I'll shoot a right because the gun's on my left side and I open the bolt. But I shoot a right-left as well. So I want my brass to eject to the center of the bench. So we have some T-style benches and we got some of the horseshoe-style benches. So with the horseshoe, I need a right to eject to the center. And with the T-style, I need a right-left to eject to the center.
Oh, okay.
But I can shoot a left equally well. It doesn't make any difference to me.
So we have a lot of people asking about lead angle.
What is it?
Well, that's
Why are they asking?
A lot of people are talking about some dodging going on, and they're curious if anything more can be said about it.
It really wasn't the lead angle. It was more
noticed.
the freebore diameter. The lead angle stays the same regardless of the diameter. You have to realize, though, if you increase the freebore diameter, your 1.5 degree lead angle is going to seat the bullet out slightly further.
Next question.
All right, all right.
I wasn't dodging it. I'll tell you what I shoot. I said typically on a 6 PPC, the nominal size is 2435 on the freebore diameter. I shoot a 244 freebore diameter, so it's a full thousandths over bullet diameter.
Okay, all right. Well, so we have another question.
Oh, let me add a little bit more to it. The reason we do that is so that the bullet will not stick into the freebore diameter, and you're able to seat the ogive of the bullet into that actual 1 degree, 30-minute, or a degree and a half throat with ease.
Okay. Well, they're still saying Erik. They really want to hear about Erik, but I think we're gonna go to the next.
Okay,
question.
Erik, let's tell me your freeboard diameter. This is Speedy Interrogates. Hold him down. We're gonna get this answer out of him if it kills us.
They're asking about the lead angle. I think.
Yeah. Tim Johnson really wants to know about the lead angle, and
What does he want to know?
he just keeps saying you're dodging some sort of question.
I didn't
about
dodge
the lead
anything.
angle.
I just didn't answer.
Get the rubber hose, Speedy.
So that's the
Well, let's explain what happens at the end of the neck. We got the freeboard first, correct?
go ahead.
Well, you guys, this is your interview. See, he's dodging it again. Get that
I'm
hose.
not dodging it.
Get that hose.
Every time. Anyway,
Look.
that's part of the Alex Wheeler magic, and that's the part. And yeah, I'm not dodging it. I'm just not. I can't.
Well, you don't want to involve somebody else, but I mean, if let's say you're Sheehan, what freeboard diameter and
My Shehane is 285. I think my Shehane was still 284.5, but I would go with 285 and 1 degree 30.
right,
225 freeboard.
Right.
That's on my Shehane, and that's the PRCW reamer. That's at Manson's.
Right.
That's mine, and it'll shoot. Now, the Wheeler uses Wheeler's.
Yeah, well, I mean that's
thing.
his design.
And that's why it's not that I'm dodging, is I can't really
Right.
answer because I'm not really sure what it is 100% because Wheeler did the thing. You know what I mean? So, if you want exactly the Wheeler, you're gonna have to get with Alex Wheeler.
Right.
And I don't know that he'll tell you, but he'll sell you the reamer. He'll chamber the barrel for you. And in reality, you really need to know. It's just
Right.
like when I started working with Alex, it's kind of one of those things like, the red or the blue pill, right?
Right.
But
Well, I mean, we all learn from each other. We all share,
Yeah.
but there are some of the things that people don't want to divulge to the general public
yeah,
at a time. And if
I don't, again, Alex put in a lot of work into this. He
Right.
developed many reamers, and
well, that's just like doing an NDA. When you talk, if you say, "Hey, Speed, do me the favor and let's wait,"
So-
that's
so,
non-disclosure agreement.
yeah, I'm not dodging. I just can't say because I'm not sure that I know what it is.
But if you want a copy of Erik's PRCW reamer, you can
Yeah,
call
go to
Manson. They'll
Manson's
make you a
has-
reamer, and they'll send.
And I'll tell you what it is. It's gonna. So, 3 things that you need to do to a PRCW or PRC. I don't know what the hell we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
I call it PRCW, right? Number 1, at the 200 line, you got to increase it to 535.
Right.
Because the 533, that Hornady release, is gonna click.
Yeah. Because the dies don't size it enough.
And you would think,
Right.
after doing this for so long, they would have had it figured out. But anyway, they'll click. So at the 200 line, go to 535. And then for neck turn, I would say 315. If you're not going to turn, 320.
And you want 315 to
285.
generate that 5,000 to 6,000
Yeah.
clearance. Because if you go tighter, you're not going to be able to achieve it.
Well, you'd have to turn the breast.
Well, yeah,
a
but
lot
so
more.
thin it's.
So the 315 for turn necks, 320 for no turn, 225 to 250 freeboard, and freeboard diameter 285.
Got
That's
it.
That's gonna shoot.
I don't have to take the wrench to Erik.
And that's again Manson. You can call Manson and they have the reamer
Yep.
print. That's the one that I can release. Now what I'm using, it's Wheeler's thing. That's
Yep.
why I can't. But I don't know that there's any difference. So whatever. That's where we're at. Are they happy? Probably
We're
not.
going to find out here in a second when the comments roll in. But in the meantime, we're getting a lot of comments about if somebody watching this wants to contact Speedy to get some work done, and somebody's saying that they really enjoy all of your videos with Erik, but they don't see much of you available online. They're curious.
That's 'cause
where they
I'm
can
so
find
busy.
you. They're curious where they can find you if you're going to be increasing your content in the future.
Well, when we're also doing this video in conjunction with Erik to basically get ready to launch our videos.
I'm over here answering texts, and the
yeah.
producer forgot.
Yeah,
to
producer's not switching. But anyways, we're gonna start producing videos, and once with Eric's help, and then we'll make the contact more available. Right now, the only reason I don't do it, I'm just so busy. I don't want to make any more people madder than they already are.
So another question for you is, so Speedy was cleaning with PVA bore guides and PVA cradles. How important is the bore guide and rod type / brand? What does Eric use?
PMA.
PMA. It's PMA. God dang it! Quit putting the camera on me where I'm about to eat another cookie. It's PMA, and it's okay. Bring it back. Bring it back. I use that. What are you doing? What are you doing? I use PMA because it's Speedy. He showed them to me. I'm like, man, these freaking work. And yeah, like a lot of what I use derives from Speedy. Because he likes to test, and as I described, I don't. And when I go to his shop and I see something that he's using, I go, what do you like about this? And he'll tell me, and I'm like, that makes sense. And I go buy it. You know, I let Speedy do all the work.
Well, there's a lot of bore guides out there, and I say I've seen some of the bore guides that have the rear insert, and I said the holes are bored off center on the bore guide, so when you put your cleaning rod down there with the insert, you know you're starting your cleaning rod downhill. Hey, I look just like Erik Cortina. But the PMAs, all the ones I've checked, and the ones I use, that's what I use in all of my guns. I can use whatever I want. They're just concentric. They're made very well. They fit the actions well. They're not real loosey-goosey. Another thing about Pat at PMA, if you have a special action or if you need something machined a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, he probably doesn't want to do this all the time, but he's so accommodating that he'll probably, since they make the bore guides there, they will make whatever you want to fit your specific gun.
All right, so Jahan,
PMA tool, that's him.
Jahan Westerback wants to know, so about annealing. Speedy, do you BR guys anneal?
Well, there's a few that do. Lou Murdica's one of them. He anneals all his brass the night before a match. At a match, the typical bench race shooter doesn't have the time to anneal. We've got 30 minutes between ceasefire and us being called back to line, and in that time frame, we can't clean our guns, anneal, prep the brass, and load it, and be back on to the line in time. Plus, at the end of the day, most of the top-level bench race shooters just throw the brass out the door.
All right. Let's see. We have quite a few questions for Eric. Sure.
It's his interview. You're supposed to be asking him questions.
All right.
I'm going to start lying in a minute, so quit asking me
Wait for the
questions.
producer to put the camera back on me.
Eric, have you seen any better consistency on paper and speed by using amp annealer?
Can you put me by myself over here? I want to be by myself. Speedy's over there looking at me. Come on, producer.
All right.
You're so hot.
So have you seen any better consistency on paper and speed by using amp annealer than a flame method?
I'm going to say yes. And Speedy asked me earlier, do you write down and keep track of it? I don't. So just everything is off of memory. I'm going to say yes, but keep in mind that as the days go on, I'm learning more and more and more. So,
Well, you can save each session you do, can't you?
yeah, but what I'm getting at is I'm not so sure that I can't say 100% yes, because it may just be that I'm getting better myself, But I will tell you what, it's a lot easier to use. It is a lot more easier to set up. It's already set up, right? And I just start, and like I said, I throw my brass in that brass feeder, goes to the amp mate, and that alone is worth it. Just because it's so much easier.
Well, now that you've got a machine shop, can't you buy one of the testers to test the brass?
Yeah.
And write it off?
Well, yeah, I could.
But that way you can see what
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like, what do I gain?
Well, I mean, you can do like we did in Florida. We could test brass as it comes
Yeah, but
from
at the
the
end of the
factory.
day, I'm still gonna go to the range and verify.
Yeah,
So I could just go to the range and shoot. And if
Right.
it shoots small, I'm happy. And if it shoots big, I'm not. That's how I do things. It's believe the target, right?
right.
That's what I do.
But there again, me being devil's advocate here, and I'm putting you under the gun. Could you, knowing what the hardness is after you anneal, let's just say that the factory brass,
I could test different settings
yeah,
and see how they shoot.
right,
Yes, I
because
could
you're
do that.
right now you're going by the setting that amp annealer gives you for that particular
Yes.
brass.
So I could test, yes, but to me, I'm not at that point.
Yeah,
I'm at the point where.
but I
if
mean
it
you're
shoots-
competing at a world level now. You're no longer club.
Yeah, but at the same time, right now is not the time for me to experiment with that. Once the worlds are over, then I'm gonna have time to. Then I can play around with all that,
Right.
and especially because of my website, this is all great info,
Right.
and I'm learning, and they're learning. Right, I put everything on my website, shootsmallgroups.com. And my members on that website, I'm going to take this little moment to thank them because of them, Patreon and the website. I'm trying to transition over to the website on everything. It's because of them that I can do this, right? It goes without saying that I'm very thankful for them. So whatever I do when I test, whatever I try to share as much as I can with them, because there's a lot of people there, and there are different levels. There's this shooter there that he shot his last match ever. I mean, his first match ever last month. And I interviewed him. We talked about what he did, and I gave him some homework.
Not Brandon, is it?
No.
Okay.
He went to the next match, and the next match, he shot over, Saturday. And he did better, but then he made some mistakes. And we talked about that. And now I give him some homework for the next. So I'm coaching him up as he goes, because this is the perfect experiment, right? And but anyway, this is all the stuff that's going on the website, on the forum section. And I'm helping myself. I go and test, and at the same time I help everybody else. And to
You
me,
just take everybody out on the ride with you.
yeah, exactly. And they get to see everything that I'm doing. And I test a lot of stuff, and some of it doesn't work. And we're like, hey, but that just means it didn't work for me.
Right.
But at least I show them what, and the whole annealer thing, I'm already settled. Like, and I tell them, if you have a flame annealer, get a flame annealer, but to me, the amp is just the convenience, the consistency, and it's just the speed, right? The fact that I don't have to touch that brass, it can be annealing brass while I'm sizing brass or doing something else.
Right.
That's my time is super valuable. That's why I use a Prometheus, and I also have one of those super tricklers,
Right.
and those things are awesome. But anyway, it's just if you're from the forum and you're here watching, thank you. You allow me to do this and get to get interrogated by Speedy.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy his website as well. I mean, I read most of the things that y'all are all posting on there, so it's valuable to me as well. Like I said, I'm always looking for that little nugget that's laying around in there.
And they're out there. There's probably a lot of them on this live stream. What else?
All right.
Michael?
So this is for Eric. Have you tested bullet sorting / pointing yet? If so, have
Yes,
you seen any
it's on the
definitive
website.
results?
Yes, it's on the website. These are the things I'm talking about. They're on the website. I tested different pointing methods, and
But the most critical one he talked about earlier was that don't point up a whole batch of them until you go out and test
Yes.
what you've done.
yes, if you're gonna learn anything, learn that.
Yeah.
Don't just go to pointing because you read on the internet that this works.
This is what it looks like.
No, you can't. So again, all that pointing, bullet sorting, the entire load development process for that rifle that I won the Southwest Nationals with is on the website
Right.
in full detail.
Do you use
primers,
the
the
accuracy
powder.
one
Yes,
to sort?
yes, that thing's so easy.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's all there.
And that sorts base to tip.
Base to tip.
How much is the accuracy one?
I don't remember. It's one of those things that
You just got to have it.
So I was actually working on one. I was working on a tool that I was going to release.
Yeah.
And when I got that one, I'm like, I threw mine away. And I'm like,
we're
all right,
done.
this is, again, you'll never see me put out something that's going to make your life worse.
Yeah.
Just for my benefit.
Right.
No, we're all going to benefit from it, or it's not going to be on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was working on one, and it was actually more complicated. And when I saw that one, John actually had it, F-Class John. And I saw it and I said, send it to me. I got to try it. So he sent it to me, and we sorted a few bullets, and I said, okay, that's it. I scrapped my idea.
You tell John you better buy another one because you're not getting this one back.
I tried not to send. Actually, we didn't send it back until we finished sorting all the bullets.
Yeah.
Then we sent it back. But anyway,
That's what I did with that Neo X. I told him, I said, you're not getting this one back until I get mine.
Yeah.
All right, and this is going to be one of the last questions that I can find in the comments that's just not arguing about the tuner, but a real question. So, Erik, now that you won the Southwest Nationals with the PRCW, are you second-guessing taking the Shihane to South Africa? Is there still time to change guns?
I am not. If you guys saw how that Shihane shoots, it shoots so good that I didn't want to take it to Southwest Nationals because I didn't want to burn it up. No second guessing.
Okay, no second guessing. Well, did you have any more questions on that paper there? I don't really have any.
All right.
Yeah, the last one I've got here is speaking of the World Championships coming up. So you've just won the Southwest Nationals, and this is actually a question that comes from Henry Cuellar, not the
The governor? What is he?
no, not that Henry Cuellar.
What is he? He's not a governor. He's something.
He says,
Politician.
so what is your current prep for the Worlds coming up in a few days? Is your 284 Shihane your number one rig, which you just answered?
Yep.
Do you wish you were taking your 6.5 PRCW?
I'm taking them both.
Taking them both.
So there's no, again, the Shihane is magnificent, but there's no 1 and 2. I'm taking 2. One of them is the Shihane, the other one's the PRCW, and when I'm there, I'm gonna shoot them both, and whichever one shoots the best is the one that's going to the in the ring, for the individuals.
Yeah. Also, in one of Jack Neary's interviews, and that you interviewed, and I don't know if you have any tips for new shooters, but he had a closing tip that he offered, which is an insurance shot, and I've seen this my entire shooting career once I got good, was that you'll see a gentleman winning a match, and then I can say, Erik, I'll bet you $10 to $1 bill that he'll shoot his last shot out the bottom of the target. Mm-hmm. And it's typically because instead of doing the same thing they've done all the matches, they'll anticipate that last shot and they'll jerk on that trigger, to try to get that last shot over with, and they will shoot it out the bottom of the target. So Jack's little tip was, on your last shot, give yourself an insurance hold and just hold slightly, above where you've been holding, just in case you do anticipate that shot and jerk it, you don't launch that shot out the bottom. So in preparation for the Worlds, what's your preparation? Do you have any different mindset going into the Worlds now that you did going into the Southwest Nationals?
No, there's nothing different. I mean, it's working, right? Just again, I have a process. I'm gonna follow that. Mm-hmm. If I happen to win, I win. If I don't, I don't. Yep. That's it. I'm not going there to win. I'm going there to go shoot to the best of my abilities, and whatever happens, happens.
Yep.
We're gonna go shoot. My main emphasis is really the team match. That's the one. And individuals.
Is that an 8-man team?
Yeah, the 8-man team. I'm a win.
What do they call that? The 8-man team? They got a name for the 8-man.
I just call it the national team. But that's my main focus.
Yep.
And I'm going to go and we're going to win that. Like, that's if I win that, I say we,
yeah.
Right? Everything else is a bonus, right? But we are so prepared that I don't see how it can't happen. But again, it's just a world championship. But
can you name the members of the team?
I can try. Dan Bramley, the captain, Pete Rickey, he's the vice captain, and then the coaches are Bob Siebold, Trudy Fay, uh, Dale Carpenter, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the shooters. Todd Hendricks, Jay Christopherson. You have Bill Kalogi. You have Pat Scully. You have Coven, Ken Dickerman, Shiraz. Man, I know I'm leaving people out. Addison Moeller. You have Emo Coven. I don't know if I mentioned him already. You have,
Is Tim Vaught on the team?
no, none of those guys are on there. But I mean, it's a very strong team,
Right.
I mean, these, we've been preparing for a long time.
Right.
This has been a long cycle, and I know Dan Bramley's probably just can't wait for it to be over. But I think we're gonna be able to rally together and get a gold medal, and we're all gonna be happy that even though it took this long, we're gonna be all happy that.
4 years. Well, it was longer than 4
It's been
years. Six years. Yeah, that's a long time to prep.
But and then of course we have the Rutland team. Let's not forget about those guys. We have Brian Blake as the coach.
That's a 4-man team, right?
Yeah, Brian Blake is one of the coaches. Brian Bowling. Then you have David Christian, one of my teammates. You have Coco. Who else do you have down there? We had Bill Kalogi, but he got moved up. We have oh man, put me on the spot here, going off of memory. Anyway, they're all, just be on the lookout.
Yeah.
But there's some really,
in a brief synopsis, can you explain to the viewers what it takes to get onto the 8-man team?
typically the rules or the pre-qualification is you have to be you have to have a top 20 finish at nationals or a top 3 finish at state.
And you
championship.
test
And this is long range.
Right, then you test your guns along the way, don't you?
Hang on. This is just to get on, just to be able to try out. You need top 20 at nationals or top 3 at a state championship. Long range. They don't really care about mid range, at least for qualification purposes. I know there's a lot of really good mid range shooters, but for the U.S. team, because it is going to be shot at long range, the qualifications are long range. Team experience is a plus, but it is not necessary. And then once you get on, that's just so you can try out. Once you try out, the captain dictates the tryout process, but typically it involves you being able to hold good vertical. And you have win coaches; they tell you what to hold, but you need to be able to bring a good gun, and that's kind of the qualification. It's been typical that's how it works.
Right.
But anyway, that's
So even to qualify, you're almost preparing like for the nationals or for the worlds because you have to bring a gun that's capable of getting you on the team.
yeah. So, but anyway, that's how that works. It's and then we trained at Southwest Nationals. We had some training sessions. And
Right.
Again, what I'm seeing is really, really positive stuff.
Do you find that develop a team in the U.S. is a little bit more difficult than some of the other countries who are used to team shooting, like England and Australia and New Zealand and South
I'm not
Africa?
sure. I mean, nowadays team shooting is pretty common, pretty
Yeah.
popular. I mean, I remember when I started F-Class back in 2008 or so, and when I started kind of shooting the F-Class National about 2012 or so, team shooting was not what it is now.
Right.
It was just a bunch of people kind of getting together.
Right.
Seemed like every time we showed up, we were on a different team.
Right.
You were on Team Brooks at one point.
Yeah.
But
And spindle shooters.
yeah, spindle shooters, those guys been around for a long time. Team Berger been around for a long time. But nowadays you have a lot of
They're pretty salty now.
really solid teams. Like they take the team matches really serious now. But back then it was more like a practice.
Yeah. Well, there's a shared experience when you do things as a team
Yeah.
that it's more fun when you win together.
Yeah. But anyway, that's team shooting, and so anyway, the world championship, that's my main focus. We're gonna go get that gold, and then whatever else happens, it's just cherry on top, you know.
And when do you leave again?
In about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yep, it'll be fun.
So you just got some loading to do and a little bit more
Yeah.
tuning to do.
Well, the ammo's already on the way for my Shaheen and my PRCW. I already have a load for it, so just got to reload a little bit and go.
Any more questions for Erik?
Let's see. Yeah, Erik, is it true that you don't shoot groups while finding the powder charge node, then tune with the tuner or seeding depth to shrink groups?
Correct. I don't care what, you know. I just want to see what just want to make sure the load is consistent before I go start shooting for groups.
So ES is SDs.
That's first, and a lot of people skip over a good ES and SD because the groups are not good. But you know, you're not there yet. You know, you can adjust those later.
So this one's for Speedy and Erik. What are your breathing techniques when releasing the shot?
Breathing techniques?
Breathing techniques.
So okay, I've been asked this before, and I don't know that I can. I don't think about it anymore. This is where practice and training
Right.
comes in, and
It just
I'm to the
becomes
point.
second nature.
It's to the point that I don't even think about it, but I assume I hold my breath, or I assume I shoot at the bottom of the. If somebody was asking me how would you do it, it's like, well, right, weight at the bottom of the breath,
Right.
and send it. And
Well,
I
there's in bench press we have two different types of shoes. We've got the pickers that will spend the time and look for the flags to become exactly the same as the last shot, and then there's the runners who will pick a condition and start shooting and will actually follow the condition. So my first shot might be held at 6 o'clock on the 10 ring because that's where I want my groups to form, and then my last shot may be at 9 o'clock on the 10 ring. So as the condition picks up, I usually shoot to a push. Every shot I shoot may be in a different position. So in that, I'm not looking to release the trigger at a certain point. I'm paying more attention to where the conditions are and where I need to hold more. So I may only go through 2 breaths in that whole 5-shot process. I don't care. I'm just running and gunning.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, I don't even know what I do. I'd have to watch footage or something.
But I do shoot a little F class out there just at a club just for fun. And I said, I don't really. I was trained to shoot and hold the breath and release, but I don't do it anymore. To me, paying attention to the wind and the conditions is more important than when I release my breath. It may be more critical when you're shooting offhand, or when you're shooting like PRS and you're over a barricade or something like that. You don't be up and down. You know,
you have different sports have different requirements.
Right.
Like if you're shooting PRS, okay, let me speak about my experience. When I shot PRS, it was chaos the whole time. like I'd shoot, and when they say impact, it was a surprise to me, just like as much as it was to everybody else. I wasn't thinking about breathing. I wasn't thinking about much. Right. And I'm sure the guys at the top, they probably think about all that. I don't know. I don't know if they do, but you know, those guys are chasing 1 point for the whole match. You know, I was chasing 1 point for now.
Well, like I said, I think just the discipline almost dictates. Yeah, if you're shooting like the air rifle or something, you know, when you're in there, I mean, air rifles and 22s, they're very unforgiving about movement, you know, because you've got such a long barrel time compared to what we've got in our centerfire guns, you know. So any little movement you do affects, you know, where the bullet impacts.
Yeah. Any more questions?
So Erik, what do you think about the new NRA changes in front rests?
I don't know. I don't know that they mean anything in the sense of if for example the rest. I think that Rod said if those rollers were really that helpful, everybody with those rests would be winning. Like, you know, it'd be like, okay, how many of those people have rests with rollers? Well, 10 people. It'd be 1 through 10 with rollers, and then everybody else, you know, and vice versa. Oh, the Neo X or the whatever. If it was really if it was meaningful enough that they have to actually ban them, come on,
Right.
have some data, some But I think people, again, I don't know who's on the committee. I don't know who decided it needed to be changed, and I don't even know how they enforce it because the rules are so vague. If you read the rules, they throw and / or support. It can't, like something along the lines. It can't be mechanic. It can be supported by a mechanical device. Well, freaking joystick rest is a mechanical device.
Right.
So does that mean we can't use joystick rest anymore? You know, and again, it's
anything you put under it that moves would be a mechanical
that's
device.
my point. So that they put that on there, and I'm like, well, does that mean we can't use joystick rest anymore?
I've seen those guys use those scissor jacks from a car.
But it's
With a bag on
that
it.
would be mechanical.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? We use the sandbag now? You know, it's just they're not very well written to begin with, and they just create more confusion. And if they're confusing, how do you ban somebody? Like how do you disqualify somebody with a vague rule?
I don't know.
So that's what I think about that. I just kind of, just keep on trucking. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I've never been beat by arrest yet.
Exactly.
All right, well, I have one more question that I can find here, and they say they're certain you're going to try to dodge this one. Where do you get?
Hide underneath the table. We'll take that microphone with you.
Yeah.
Or what kind of cookies have you been eating in this interview?
So right before we started this interview, my metal supplier showed up, and he brought me some cookies. They're called crumble cookies.
And Eric's ate the entire box in the 2-hour period that we've sent it, because you saw I hadn't got a single one.
So he just happened to bring them as I was coming up here, and I said, all right. So I brought them up here.
And ate them all.
And Speedy ate 3 or 4 before we started, and then just so he could pretend that he doesn't need cookies. But anyway.
That's all I've had is I've been saving this last drop of water.
So anyway, that's where we're at.
All right.
Let me go back to the tuners right quick. And I said that I kind of move them, whatever. The best thing you can do is set it and forget it. And move it if you have to. I know a lot of people try to, John Myers was
So you say set it and forget it after you've tuned it.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Tune it, find a happy medium, and try to leave it alone until you see that it's, because most of the time it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
John Myers was a master at that, and I'm trying, but even I'm not super comfortable doing it. So don't take that as saying that just you got to go move it. If the
Right.
temperature's up, go move it. You got to test all these things.
We've mentioned John Myers many times over this interview. You want to explain who John Myers is to these?
So
folks
John
out
Myers, F-class shooter, retired. I'm going to put that in quotations because I'm not so sure he's done. He's too competitive to be done. But anyway, he won the Nationals, I think individually 6 times. He won the Southwest Nationals twice, and he won the Mid-Range Nationals 3 or 4 times.
And what was the record he set?
I think, what was it?
I think he dropped us a few X's.
1800.
Yeah,
I
18.
mean, he shot 3 days in a row, perfect 600s 3 days in a row. I don't think it's a record. I mean, this guy was a machine, and he used tuners, and he would move the tuner every time. But this guy had knowledge that I don't possess, and he's a mechanical engineer, and he kept lots of data, which I don't. So he managed to do that, and that's who John Myers is. After he retired, he told me. Sometimes I want to say everything he knows about tuners, but I'm sure he didn't tell me everything he knows about tuners. But he told me a lot.
I don't
about
think
tuners.
you could learn it in a week
Yeah.
if you sat with him for 24 hours a day.
So he taught me a lot about tuners, and that's why my tuner was redesigned, and that's where the V2 came from.
But he lived and died. If he didn't have a tuner, he wouldn't go to a match.
No. And I'm the same way. Like, if they told me right now, hey, you can't have tuners, you can't take them to South Africa, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah.
Because, if you get there and the gun doesn't shoot, you're done.
Well,
And it's very likely that the gun's not going to shoot.
John Myers' friend, the gentleman that shot the smallest group ever shot in our competition.
Yep.
Same tuner that John was shooting.
Yeah. But anyway, So that's where I'm at. Don't. This is, we're speaking in this is very high level competition and high level stuff. It's so high level that I'm not even comfortable going and moving the tuner. John was, 6-time national champion. But like I said, don't take this to say, well, Erik said if it's cold, move it this way. If it's hot, no, don't. Because you can also, it's like chasing the lambs. You can actually take it out of tune on your own. So if it shoots to your requirements, leave it alone. That's all for now.
Well, you want to wrap it up?
Yep, I think so. What is that? It's been 30,
this.
40 minutes? 3.5 hours.
This paper doesn't have anything on it, so. Well, on behalf of Erik Cortina, affording us the time to interrogate him, and I think he's been pretty honest over the course of the day. I want to thank him. I hope you guys will appreciate his openness in preparation for the world giving some of his secrets away. And I know I do. I'm glad to be able to call Erik a friend and a competitor, and we'll just keep sharing as we go.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And again, if you joined us, thank you very much. And if you are on the forum, thank you. And if you're not, go sign up, because all this information, like this sounds like secrets that I'm giving away. It's all on the website.
Wow.
It's all there, and it's all there in detail, right? So go sign up on the website. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's next to nothing compared to what you're going to save.
Right, and there's a lot of videos on there you won't see anywhere else.
Oh yeah, there's stuff there that chambering videos. There's loads of everything's there, and there's a lot more to come. But anyway, go sign up if you're not there, because again, this is all there and then some. But I don't think we can cover everything. And hell, I didn't realize we went 3.5 hours. But anyway, thank you. And Speedy, thank you very much for your knowledge and for sharing what you know. I mean, sharing with me, you've shared a lot with me, and as you know, it's like I told you earlier, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I have their phone numbers, and yours is one of those.
Well, I appreciate this. You don't know how much. I mean, after you left, I pretty much teared up about it. I got to thinking about it on my own. You can see how my voice is changing too. But anyways, Speedy Gonzalez, keep them small. That's all.
All right, Erik Cortina, keep them centered.